Post the link for.
You did in the Discord.
All right, I'm doing it again. All right, hello and welcome to the Survivor Maryland Winner Take All Finale After Show. I'm your host, your editor, your producer, or whatever you want to call me, Anders. Joining me, as always, is Erin, my most lovely and wonderful co-host, here for the good and the bad, uh, as well as the final three of Survivor Maryland Winner Take All, which is insane that these three. Oh, bye, Katie. It's just, and it's the top two of Survivor Maryland Winner Take All. So happy to have both of you. Um, Obviously, for JS and Eric, you guys have known the result in the reality for 7 years. So this is more just waiting for it to get released. But Aaron, this is your experience of it for the first time, your view of the final tribal council. Before we get into this long interview and dissection of the season and talking about what we may not have covered or other parts of it, I want to hear from you just real quick. What are your thoughts on the season, this finale? You know, as nice or as brisk as you want to make it.
Nicer. Interesting. I was told to have infinite glasses of wine before this, and I'm really glad about it. It was a phenomenal season. I'm gonna say that right now. Regardless, like anybody that says like the winner spoils the ending, that's just not true. This was a phenomenal season. Obviously, and I'm gonna say it right here, I'm gonna say it to your face. Not my favorite winner. Maybe one of my least favorite.
No shock.
Not a game I liked, not a game I respected, not a game I think should have won. I agreed with every single thing that Eric and Morgan and Jack and Katie all said at Final Tribal. And I think that from what I saw, I don't think Katie or Eric had as bad showings as the jury was making it out to be. It seemed like the jury went in with their preconceived notions of what these people's games were, and they decided to just use that and ignore the answers to the questions. Katie said time and time again, I was playing aggressive, I was playing more out front, I was playing blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like, but did you really do anything? After Katie had explained what she had done over and over and over again. And you get a whole speech from Jack of like even laying out from a juror's perspective what Eric's game is. And I don't think that Eric misconstrued his game either. I think that Eric did a great job portraying his game and portraying what was important throughout his game and the game. But I think that the jury was just not as receptive to that as I was hoping for. But I don't think that knocks down the season. Overall, it was still incredibly fun. It was still incredibly exciting up until the very end. You did not know what direction it was going to go. So anybody that says like this ending takes down this season in the rankings or anything like that, shut up. Like
Real.
Don't do that. Because this was a phenomenal season, and anybody that says otherwise just because you don't like the ending, which, like, preaching to the choir here, like, it was still a fantastic and phenomenal season and so fun to watch every step of the way.
What I will say, to get ahead of all of it, is that I think the final three of this season is one of the best final threes I've ever encountered or experienced in my life. I think every single person there was a great winner, and if they had won, I would have had their story set up, which is what I wanted to do with the season. You know, if Eric had won, I wanted to show someone who came from the bottom, made mistakes, but then capitalized it. If Katie won, I wanted to show someone who had a stellar social game and did control all these things. And JS did win, and I wanted to show that he was a capable player, albeit going a bit crazy at times, but not like sometimes it was over the top, but it was never to the worst degree of, you know, whatever you want to call it. I could have made it much worse, to be clear. That being said, obviously I'm not going to be a Tony here and go, look, I think that if you're a bully, you can still win. But I do think that this final three is great, and I am happy with whatever result did occur. I think that a jury is, whatever decision they do make is their decision. I think there's a whole argument about what makes a bitter jury and whether or not that's correct. Katie's whole game is a social game. This is a social game. How people feel about you, how people feel about what they want to do, that is their right. They're not dictated by a point system, by a checklist of what needs to be done. They're all allowed to vote how they want to, regardless of how you feel about it. You can be mad that they didn't vote a certain way, but I don't think it's right to say a jury is bitter and therefore wrong, because what is the point of this game if not to make people want to vote for you? That's why there's a jury. If it was just who played the best game, I could just say, all right, I decide you play the best game. But it's not. That being said, I think that all three of you are fantastic, and I would have been happy in any way. But I'm not trying to invalidate your win, JS, because obviously you did win, and you deserve credit for winning. Um, but I want to take a moment and sort of ask each of you what your experience was like watching the season, reliving highs and lows for some of you. I guess I'll start with JS since you definitely had the most to interact with, and yeah, a lot of highs and lows specifically for you. What was it like to watch yourself? Oh, do you have a question, Erin?
I would like to say congratulations, JS, because you did win and you did earn the win. And it's not the vote I would have made, but I do want to congratulate you.
Watching the live shows of Aaron saying every week, I will not win, I suck, I'm getting 0 jury votes, was the best part.
Happy
because
friend.
no, that was wonderful. I think Aaron actually makes a lot of great points because Katie and Eric played so incredibly strong. Like Anders, this final three is so great. So if each of the three of us won, it would have been a great season. We're each like super deserving. Experience watching this. It was fun, and then it was a little less fun, and then it was fun again, and then it was really not fun. I think watching the last like 2 episodes were the worst because I think while I had this strategy of burning jury votes and saying happy birthday Biatch and flipping off Jack and saying bye Michaela or whatever, those were things that I talked about in confessional like 6 hours before. That was purposeful. And then when I got to the end, I was like, all right, my goal after, Eric burned me, screwing me at final 7, I was like, all right, I want Eric to be on jury and I'm going to burn one last jury vote. And I think at that point, I wasn't playing the game anymore because I was getting sucked up in this vitriol hate that I had for Eric. And I really did lose myself. And, I saw, Eric said in the chat today about like, hey, like if your kids, were being bullied like this, like you would not be okay with that. And I 100% agree with that. People shouldn't be treated like that. So it's hard to watch that back. And this was 7 years ago. It's 2024 now. And I'm watching myself as a 22-year-old. And, it was hard. But, I do really enjoy the moments that were like epic and fun. And, I love the over the topness because I'm still over the top. But, you can do that without being mean. And so for everyone that loves those epic, exciting moments, great. That's what TV is all about. But, there's still flaws to how I acted and behaved. And watching that is not great. But it's also a learning experience that you have already learned, but can relearn it 7 years later.
Eric, what was it like watching this for you? You got to experience watching major conflict for yourself where people loved you and, well, your turnout wasn't as successful as you wanted, but at least you were, at least it was shown that other people didn't like Doug either. So at least in that way, it's like, Eric was so right. Doug is a villain. Why didn't Sadie want to take him out? And then you get to come back this time. You get to be a part of, this failing minority, but then have these incredible moments where you flip a vote. You have a 4-1-1-1 vote. You get to take revenge on the people who, for half the game were tricking you. And even though you didn't win, what was it like to watch this back to experience winner take all over major conflict?
Yeah, I think that's like a really interesting question because I think while watching it, I think it was very entertaining, and I think the season's edited great, and huge props to you. And I think it was like really fun while watching it. But one thing that definitely still like looms over the whole situation is like I think overall there was like a really great outcome where like I made a really good friend in Katie, but I think overall a lot of it, at least towards the end of the game, I just didn't really even want to be there anymore. And it was kind of like I had 2 options where I could just quit the game. Because how I see it is if this were a pickup basketball game, I would probably just not play anymore. I would just say, hey, I'm gonna find another group to play pickup basketball with. But it's not, right? So my options are either leaving the game or continuing to play game and playing half-hearted. And I think neither was like a good option. So I think like the downside, like while watching, I'm like, yeah, these are really exciting moments. But definitely one thing that throughout the past 7 years I've been thinking is, man, if anyone actually is my fan, I'm gonna let them down a lot because I'm not gonna be playing like my hardest at the very end because I don't even want to be there. So yeah, I think it's definitely still like mixed feelings watching. It's like definitely while watching it, I think it's really entertaining. It's like if it's for the sake of like good TV, it's definitely good TV. It's definitely good and fun to watch. But I think the internalization I have is like, it's like an experience. There was like a really great outcome, but overall it's also like not like a great feeling by the end of it. So it's kind of a feeling. So there's two parts basically.
You played this game for 80 days in your semester. It's a hard thing to go through, even beyond what you had to deal with. Just on that level, it's a hard thing to go through, especially back-to-back semesters. I think that me watching it, editing it, going through the footage over and over, I was there. I saw at least what you would show me on that level, but I don't think at any point I was disappointed by your performance. I think, if I could go back and give you more of a pep talk for Final Tribal to be more confident and have more of a self-assuredness in that, you're playing this for yourself, you are here, that's what I would do. But I don't think that you should feel that you've let anyone down. I don't think your performance is. I am looking at Erin and I cannot help but laugh right now. You are fully kind.
It's just as somebody else who has been through this experience and been bullied through this experience and made to feel like shit, you should not feel sorry for anything. You did not let anybody down. Like, you did an amazing job and you did stick it out until the end. And you should be proud of yourself. And I hope that everybody else that were fans of Eric throughout this are also proud of him. I would have been crying anyway, but I am 3 glasses of wine in. I'm so sorry.
So Katie, for you obviously got to live through season 4, and that affected you in a very clear way of, fuck these people, I'm playing again, I am not a bad winner. And you came back, and by God, I mean, I don't think I can express this well enough to the viewers. When Katie plays this game, it is like you get to hear literally every thought Katie has. I woke up, it had to be in the first week, I woke up and had over 400 texts because Katie had added me to a group chat because she had run into Sabrina. It was an insane text thread. And it was like, Katie, what is this? She wrote documents on documents on documents detailing every single conversation. And at a certain point, I had to go, Katie, this seems like a lot. But you came into this game and you were playing hard from the moment that you began. You would tell me every single conversation you had verbatim. I didn't even need to watch footage. I just watched the professionals. But what was it like coming back and watching yourself for season 8 and seeing a much more flipped effect of people being very supportive, people saying Queen Katie, people saying Katie's such a good player, instead of, wow, Katie and Pascal, she's such a balloon with him. And do you think they're dating? What do you think it was like this time?
Yeah, well, one thing I learned while watching this back, especially this finale, was that, damn, I could talk for miles and miles. And I know you gave me a very generous edit, Anders, because I know I had some really long-winded answers in the final tribal council. But it was really awesome.
It was still 50 minutes, to be clear.
Fair. But it was awesome to look back on. Honestly, I feel like this season 8, was a lot heavier for me than season 4 was, just given how invested I was. As Anders said, I did document every single reflection I had. They're like pages and pages long. Every tribal, every day, like I literally had nightmares every day about it, like because I was that invested. And I think the ending was definitely obviously not where the outcome I wanted. And so also I think feeling like the jury didn't quite understand my game was really disheartening, because it felt like a little bit of a repeat of season 4, but much worse, because I had people I was genuinely close to in and outside of the game, and to feel like they didn't respect my game, and just really, it just like really put me down. And given that was the last semester for me, senior year, spring, that was just really emotionally draining and hard for me. But I think looking back now, especially seeing this season air, Anders, like you gave me a lot of justice, and it makes me be able to look at it with a little more of a lighter heart since it has been 7 years. And yeah, I'm grateful for the friendships I took away and just like how much I've grown from the experience, and all the fans, obviously, so amazed at how huge this community is. So thanks for watching.
So a big part of this finale we saw was, and I think a big part of the merge, and I guess since Mike was eliminated, was AA, the Asian Alliance, but only just you two, no Jack. So I, yeah, Jack wasn't there. So I guess I want to ask a little bit about that. You two became very close in this season. Katie, as you said, when you started the season, you thought Eric was crazy. Because obviously all you knew about him was Toastmasters and that he hated Doug and really wanted to work with Mike for some reason. But you guys came to grow very close and trust each other a lot, which was very strange for you, Katie, since you obviously were willing to cut anyone except for Eric. And Eric, you had been toying with what you wanted to do and ultimately decided you wanted to take Katie to the end and still beat her. But were willing to fall on the sword for multiple reasons, but especially so she won. But like, can you two talk a little bit about why that relationship was so important and why that alliance among so many others stuck out? Also, to clear up any of the messages, Eric, Katie, and Jack are all hanging out right now. There's no dating, okay? No dating rumors. Anyways, answer my question. Or don't.
I don't remember the question.
The question is, why was the relationship between you and Katie so strong when every other relationship wasn't? Like, what about that relationship was carrying you through all of it?
So I think, like, at least if you look at my game, it's actually really one-dimensional and more one-dimensional than it's portrayed. Like, I latched onto like Mike for the pre-merge, and I latched onto Katie for the post-merge, right? So when you look at my game, and then if you look at it that way, you can very easily see like why I was so close. And even on the Mike vote out, I was like really emotional as well. And like, so I think like if you look at it that way, then it's probably not that surprising that I'm willing to take someone to the end, because it turned out like, I guess loyalty maybe was my best trait. And when I say loyalty, I don't mean like those fake things where it's like, obviously this person betrayed you in the past, so then you say you'll work with them and you won't. Like, that's not loyalty, right? That's like, you've already been burned. You're not going to get burned again. It's just out of convenience. So things like work out and you can like say you're quote unquote allied. But like to the people who I've actually had allegiances to for the whole game, I was like ride or die with them. So like from that perspective, it's actually really one dimensional how I was playing. And so to me, I don't think it was very surprising, especially given at the end where it's like, if I don't really care anymore, I might as well have my ally win. And why would I like disparage my ally if they don't want me out? If their goal is that they want to take me to the end, then I'm not going to also like backstab them at that point.
Yeah, for me, I feel like Eric's the only person I've played with in the 2 seasons that was so transparent about his gameplay and his character overall. Like, I feel like it never deviated, and he's not really a manipulative person. JS might feel differently, but I feel like to me, it was very clear he meant what he meant and he was going to stick to it. And I think over time, as we played together, as the days went on, I was like, oh, he actually is serious about what he's talking about. Whereas I think even people I played with, like Andrew or Tony or Doug, like people I either knew before the game or like quickly built tight bonds with, I knew like they were self-interested, like, you know, most people are in the game. They wanted to win in the end, so they're going to do whatever it takes to get far. But I feel like Eric had other agendas in mind. And for him, I think like being loyal was like a really core value for him and a priority, that even if he didn't win, or even if he, you know, it was at his loss, like he would still take me to the end, because that meant like he stuck to his word. And so I really did believe that. And I think it inspired me to a point where I was like, I'm willing to kind of do the same, with probably a little bit of like the sliver thought in my head, like it still has to be a smart move for me. But
of course, I want it. Look, we've got to stay together as long as it is still benefiting me. The timeline where Katie goes, Eric, no, you can't get rid of yourself, and then she goes, Morgan, we've got to cut Eric. Um, and then masterminds him going out. I mean, let's talk a little bit about the final three and a little bit about maybe what our thoughts were coming into that final tribal. Because I think final tribal performance, you're watching this, I think from a viewer perspective, and it's like, why is why is Katie super emotional at the top? Like, why is the jury so seemingly against Katie, like unaware of it? Why is Eric not really focusing on his own game and just really, I guess, sidestepping a lot of it? And then why is everyone asking JS to do both sides? He's doing both, but neither. Um, I guess I'm just curious about what was your headspace going into Final Tribal, and I guess what was your reflection of how you wanted to present your own game? So, Katie, how was it for you? What was your headspace heading into Final Tribal, and what was your perception of how you needed to present your game to win?
Yeah, that's a great question. And maybe this will help answer some questions for a lot of people watching. I don't feel like I necessarily brought my all at Final Tribal. I actually had gotten a little bit of word from someone on the jury beforehand going into Final Tribal that no one thought I deserved to win and that I was likely going to get 0 votes. And so I think I had gone through this really emotional roller coaster after voting out Tony, because then I had to vote out Doug. And then like Eric was asking me to vote him out. And so it was just like, holy crap, like what have I done? I am a shitty person and I made it this far and I'm not even going to win. So what was it all for in the end when I'm not even going to get the respect or even a single vote? And so I was like super, super down. And I also had points in the game where I wanted to quit because I was like, I just feel like a terrible person. And this has gone so personal for me. But I knew quitting wasn't an option. And at Final Tribal, it was also Tony's birthday that day, which I talk in the confessional. I like baked cupcakes for him an hour before I was icing the cupcakes. Like, I just didn't feel like it was right in my heart to take all the credit for all the strategic moves that Tony and I made together throughout the entire game, especially on his birthday. Like, that just felt like such an asshole thing to do as someone who was such a close friend to me, prior to the game and during the game. I didn't have it in me. Like, I think I wanted to win, but I didn't have like that much heart in me to take all that credit. And so I feel like I was a little bit more dejected in my answers and was trying to really fight for myself. But I already knew in the back of my head, like, people kind of had their minds made up coming in and like I wasn't going to win. So I was just saying anything I could, but I honestly was just like defeated going into Final Tribal.
Eric, for you, obviously you had in some ways kind of preempted yourself to go home to be this spotlight for Katie, and then ultimately that didn't happen. You're in the final three. I know you were dejected, but knowing you were in the final three, you couldn't quit. You were there to, at most, beat JS or stop him from winning. What was going into your headspace going into Final Tribal, and what was the sort of perspective you wanted to bring for your own game?
To be honest, it's been 7 years, and I don't really remember that well.
That's good. How could you remember?
Yeah, I probably was trying to block most of it away, so I don't really have a good answer for this. I think like I was probably just not feeling great, and I just couldn't communicate exactly. Instead of communicating what I did well, I guess I was trying to just hammer home the point that JS was not being a good person, and I don't think that's the person who kind of like attitude that should be brought. Even if it, like, I think to a certain extent it's okay, but then there's like a line, and maybe for everyone the line's different, but I felt like the line was crossed. So I was really trying to hammer that point home, which is not beneficial for why I should win, right? That's definitely why I didn't.
Especially when Jack makes the exact same argument in her speech. I think I think I speak for a lot of people when I say I completely understand your perspective on it and agree to some level. Like, Survivor is, and especially this episode has two of my favorite moments, which is you expressing what makes Survivor Maryland different from like a reality show. Like, this is on a campus. You are seeing these people day to day in everyday lives. Like, this is a game you're playing while you're at school. And while I love the tribals getting crazy. I love people having large reactions. But obviously, at the end of the day, this is a game and there should be a level of respect. And I think where it became, we know where the line was, and it really didn't reach that line until that point. I think even the happy birthday biatch wasn't that insane as far as like bullying goes, but I think that's for every person their own thing. But I do think we all agree, like, the point of this game isn't to be the meanest person to get what you want. It's you want to play the best game to win. And while we can agree that is also the point, we can also say that there were parts of that that did help JS get farther. That being said, we don't want every person to play Survivor Maryland from now on going, the only way for me to get to the end is if I say very incendiary and mean things. But I don't even think that was really the intention behind it. But I think everyone agrees. No one wants like this to be a mean-spirited club. You're already voting each other out. That is the worst thing a club can be, is exclusionary. But obviously, at the end of the day, I don't think the votes for JS represent that. And I don't think in the, Jesus Christ, 14 seasons since season 8, that is what has been reflected. I can't speak for it. At least in my 2 seasons, that's not how it's been reflected. JS, for you coming into Final Tribal, I mean, what was in your headspace and how did you feel like you needed to present yourself? Obviously, how you believe you needed to present yourself is not what the jury felt, because they told you multiple times, you're doing this terribly. But I guess, what was your perspective on it?
So 3 things, and let's see if I can remember them. 1, as soon as I won the Final 4 challenge, no offense to these other 2 wonderful people, I just felt that I would win the game. And I had that full confidence because of everything that happened. And I feel like a lot of the viewers are like, I don't get why he won. And like, I don't know, you weren't there. Like, just the atmosphere just made me feel that I was going to win. But going into it, I knew that it could very easily go to Katie, because Katie is a previous winner. And, you know, the jury, these idiots, they let her get there. And I'd been saying since day 1, let's get her out. And no one really ever took that seriously, or was being, you know, manipulated and tricked by her goddess energy, right? Like, she's incredible for a reason. And Eric has also played a really great game. And I recognized that and said that the past few votes, like, let's get him out. He's playing great. So I knew I just needed to come in and not fuck it up. I wanted to come in calmer than I usually do. I wanted to come in like with like a plan, and not just have the antics I had in the past. And the third thing that I want to say is, this is where my foggy brain gets me. The third thing is I forgot. Okay.
I mean, I'll speak on behalf
what
of
was the third thing?
What was the third thing for you? How your perspective?
I'll come in. I'll come in with it when it comes to me.
So from the jurors' perspective, I went back through the Ponderosa group me this morning, or maybe it was yesterday. I know. I had to go back on the group me, which is crazy. A big thing that led to why they feel a certain way or what their perspective was is that you have to think about who's in this jury and who knows what. You have to think about who here is going to be advocating for each of these people. So Andrew comes in, he's just been wildly blindsided by Katie, is not really sure what happened. And to be fair, did anyone know what was happening besides the returners? And even then, did they know? Only Katie and Tony knew. Dylan comes in, and his whole mindset is, Eric made a huge mistake by keeping me around, which I'll give this to you, Eric. I really do think you not saving Dylan is exactly what you needed to do. It made the returners look less of a threat. It immediately made Michaela and Fish seem like the biggest issue in the world because they could flip and change it all. And it brought Katie and you closer. So it's like win, win, win. Of course, Dylan was mad, but like Dylan didn't really put an effort with you. So what is he mad about? But then you have Fish, who, girl, do we need to go into Fish's awareness of the game? His question to Katie and Eric was, why didn't you work with me? Meanwhile, you go back to the episode, and it's like, well, they told you to.
You're on the bottom, actually. He's the one that
they said to him,
you're on the bottom.
Well, I love that question so much because it's like, I played a shit game. Now, why didn't you guys work with me? We tried. Well, it didn't work. Bitch, even after you came in and said to vote for JS, you still voted for Eric. But it's like, at a certain point, these people just didn't have a lot of perspective on what Eric or Katie were doing, because the only people who would know were the returners who were working with them. And as it went on, you have people who were betrayed by Katie very heavily. Tony knew a lot about Katie's game, was betrayed and hurt by her. That's fair, but obviously he wasn't going to express the depth of Katie's game in that way. Same with Doug, who was working very closely with Katie. The downside of betraying people is that they might feel a certain way about revealing information or giving you credit. And I think where JS's game is benefited is that JS is loud and he is very clear about what he wants and what he wants to do. And even if the argument that Eric makes at Final Tribal, how much did he really manipulate for a lot of these post-merge votes is true, they at least saw JS doing something, which is easier to stick in their mind than someone telling them, oh, I did this. Well, I saw JS be loud about wanting Michaela out, and then she went out. Did JS control that vote? No. It was very nearly him, but it wasn't him, so it didn't matter.
I totally agree. Like, I think the reason why I won is from day one, my moves were out on the table. I was loud about it. Everyone knew every single thing I was doing. And I created this huge target on my back. Like, merge on. Like, every single vote was like, let's get him out. Let's get him out. And I didn't. You know what I mean? Katie and Eric really didn't have that. But I actually don't really understand why Katie didn't win. Like, that's still something that puzzles me, because I knew everything that she was doing. Like, and I didn't know about her relationship, with Tony. I didn't know about her relationship with Andrew, but I still knew that she knew everything. I still knew that she was, doing all these things. And like, if I was voted out, I would have 100% voted for Katie. Like, that was just a no-brainer to me. The fact that she got to Final Tribal Council, like, she should have won for that. Like, that's how I feel about that. But she didn't, because the atmosphere in the air was very, very anti-returnees. And like, I feel like that's something that the viewers don't see. Like, from day one, the atmosphere is anti-returnees. And did I push that narrative and agenda because it helped me get farther? Absolutely. And did I end that narrative when I realized the newbie ship for me was not going so well? Absolutely. And I was pumping Katie's name from day one. Let's get her out. I was very scared of her. I knew Katie on because we're in the same fraternity together. And I know how good she played. I just watched her season. And no one listened to me. Everyone shot it down, or usually Tony. And so when I get to the end and I was like, look, I told you guys let her get there. People were like, oh, you're right. Maybe we should have listened to you and give me the vote. And, specifically votes like Tony's and Doug's, like, I fought for them to stay that round. And they didn't listen to me. They betrayed me. And they felt like, oh, if I had listened to him, I'd still win the game. I owe him my vote because he was right and I was wrong.
I do think it's like a multiple level thing. It's like, number one, you need to have someone in the jury advocating for you. And I don't think that Eric should have been voted. Look, in my perfect world, this is the final three. All right. I think this is I don't know if you guys could tell by I don't know if you guys could tell by my in the beginning of this finale how I described everyone's games. Morgan and Sam's games were, how do I put this, less fun to watch and less clear. So in my mind, the three clearest games were these three. But the issue with this is that Morgan goes to the jury and what she expresses is the exact opposite of what you want, which is me and Katie played the same game, which is we just let other people make the moves. Which, number one, is wrong, and number two, is an insane way to pitch someone's case. And so the only perspective the jury really had was at Tribals, where JS is screaming a bunch at Eric for no reason, and then Morgan comes, who seemingly should have the most information, and says, me and Katie, we just got around. It's like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, when people say you were dragged to the end, by who? What do you mean? Who dragged them? Not JS. So there's no advocates. And then I think if Eric obviously had more of an oomph to himself and an intention to fight, you have more people willing to vote for him. Because there were people who were like, Eric's playing a really good game, because you had Jack and Miranda who were like, oh, we've seen Eric, we see what he's doing, and he is controlling these votes. And I think even Doug was supportive of Eric. It really was, no one was going to bat for Katie, and Katie wasn't being loud about it. But at the end of the day, the jury is going to see what they see, and they're going to reflect on that. The final tribal can only do so much, and I don't think that the final tribal performance by Katie and Eric, well, I don't think the final tribal performance was like stellar from all three of you. I think everyone was very critical of you, which I think is what a jury should do. But I think, 7 years ago, if I could go back and give you all advice, it would just be, Eric, let's be confident, King, you're here. JS would be, yeah, I don't know, pick a side of what you want to be. And then for Katie, it would be, you're obviously fighting an uphill battle, but you have to be as expressive and clear about what you did, because at the end of the day, even if they don't respect it, and I think you did a great job of this, you're going to outline what you did. So whether or not you win, why you got there is clear. Eric, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I really want to add on to that. I think your comment about optics, it actually means like so much, because like even in Final Tribal Council, I didn't know the reason the idol was played on Morgan was because Andrew leaked. I'm pretty sure I was surprised as well. So just like off that, imagine you're in that boat, and as like one of Katie's closest allies, you don't even know the whole story. Then even if you went on the jury, like I wouldn't be able to argue Katie's case as well as the episodes did, because she was so close to everyone. Everyone thought they were her, Katie's number one. And the only way to do that is if everyone feels like that's true, right? And if that's true, then they only see one facet of like this amazing player who has like 8 alliances who are like all treating her as their number one. And how do you like bring that case to the jury at the very end? It's really difficult, because even if you like vocalize at the end, how many people are gonna believe it? How many people are gonna see it? And it's just a difficult thing to communicate, and an even more difficult thing to show. So that's something where, as viewers, when we watch it, we can see like, oh wow, yeah, everything's going so great. It makes so much sense why Katie didn't end. But when you're actually playing, it becomes harder to vocalize. And I'm not sure if there's a way to even vocalize that better. It really does depend on who's listening. And yeah, so I'm not saying like there was no way to convince the jury, but I think it was like an uphill battle in even doing that convincing, because a lot of the people there weren't like, maybe she had like 3 number ones on the jury, but even then, they only have a partial view of her whole game, right?
And I think that is the challenge of Survivor, is how do you play the best game and also show that to the jury? Because it isn't just who you vote out, because guess what? You're going to need a majority to vote them out. So why is it how you controlled it? And I think that's why people criticize your game, Eric, because the Tony and Doug votes, especially, and Michaela votes, were all your crafting, at least in how they shaped up. And I think it's not taking credit for those that hurts. It's like JS would take credit for things that, frankly, he didn't have control of. But I think JS's game up until the merge was masterful and incredible. Like, he is the narrative driver of returners versus newbies. And episode 7 is like the culmination of that ability. He gets rid of Jess, who episode 1 he establishes not liking. But obviously at the merge, he stops having all that power, because you can only play that way for so long before people lose it.
I got a little power back, okay?
And you know what? You definitely flipped the game, and then after you flipped the game, then it became much harder to control it, because you gave returnees power, and they were much less willing to be like, I'm going to keep JS to Final Four.
I underestimated how tight some of the returnees were, and how they wouldn't eventually turn on each other, especially when they get to the end. That was like one thing I didn't realize that would happen. I thought Doug would like side with me and like vote out some of those people. And even Eric would, do the same. I think that was a downfall in a way, but it worked out.
So let's talk a little bit about the season and our favorite moments from it. Erin, reflecting on the entire season, do you have a favorite moment from it?
When
or
Liam
from this episode?
cameoed today.
Okay, besides Liam cameoing. Jesus Christ.
Fine, I'll pick something else. I don't know. I took so many notes, dude. Picking a moment. I don't know. Make these people go.
All right. Katie, looking back on the season, is there a favorite moment you have watching it?
Oh, that is so hard. Like, just one moment?
Oh, actually, I think I have my answer now.
Oh, okay.
Never mind, Katie. I don't care about you. Erin?
I'll give Katie time to think. I think this episode and throughout, it's not a moment, but it's a storyline, and it is. It's gonna look like a pandering answer right now, but it is Katie and Eric's friendship. I think that is just something that is so purely college Survivor, and something that you like really can't get anywhere else. And like the culmination of it in this episode, like it just truly was like nothing else. Like watching something just like it's just watching a beautiful friendship come to life, and you get to just like as a viewer be a part of that. And I think that was really cool and really awesome to watch. So I would say that.
The way you texted me that and went, I'm literally tearing up right now.
I did fully cry watching the episode because of that.
That's how I felt whenever I'd watch a JS and Sam scene. I mean, the two closest of friends. No, but I also love those scenes. I think they're so fun, and I think Katie's comment about we are going to go to Iron Age and we're going to get Korean barbecue. It's like that is very cute, and like I think that is at the end of the day, what is the point of Survivor Maryland? Is it who wins or is it the club? Like for the show, it's who wins, but for the club, it's who you get to meet and the friends you make, and like. I would say from this season, I have several friends I still keep in contact with. I'm happy to see many times. And so that is the value of it. Obviously, from a viewer perspective,
I slept on that couch behind Anders for a whole week. Like Anders and I, we were not friends during the season. I was pretty mean to
slept
him.
on my couch. Anders has slept on my couch too.
But
let me tell a real quick story about JF.
Yes,
let me tell a real
please,
quick
the blender story.
In case you don't know this, during this entire season, I had jaw surgery right before the season began, so I have some fucking hardware in my mouth. So if you ever look, I have braces and like a bunch of shit. It doesn't matter. I could talk immediately. That's fine. I could chew food for a couple weeks. I could by the end of the season, but not in the beginning. So anyways, I have to, in the diner, ask them to either chop it up really finely so I can just swallow the food, or I had to get it blended. And I would just get it chopped up. But anyway, I'm getting this food so I can eat it. And JS, this is before the season starts. The only interaction I've had with him is his interview, which, by the way, I did not like him in because he was very confrontational with me for no reason. Like, I don't know you. This is a really weird thing to be doing. And I almost didn't cast him, but Austin said, you have to cast him. And I went, fuck you. So anyways, I cast him. And the first thing he says to me upon seeing me is, "Ew, what is that?" To my food.
I thought that was before I was cast.
No, this was before the season started. And I immediately texted Austin and went, I cannot fucking have this guy in my season. I do not like him. And then that continued for the entire season. No, it got better. It was definitely, in the beginning of the season, I did not like JS. I found him to be annoying, over the top, and even worse, he'd come to confessional and say, this is how you should do it. I'd be like, bitch, get the fuck out of my room. But then he got better. By how much, better is what better is. But
wait,
7 years has changed.
That's true. Wait, also, can we talk about how Austin originally, I think I interviewed for Guts and Glory, and then I decided I didn't want to do it and I dropped out. But that would have been a crazy timeline if I had done it earlier. Sorry, just had to put that out there. But yeah, thank you for putting me on. That was fun.
So my first interaction with JS was I did not like him, and then many other interactions after that was like that. It really wasn't until JS started being more reasonable and less combative with me. I stopped feeling that way. But look, you know what? The person I was 7 years ago is not who I am today. He was much younger. Anyways, okay, favorite moments. Sorry. So we got the friendship. Katie, do you have your answer?
I do, and sorry to tack on the cheesiness, but mine personally also is related. It's when I played my idol that I found many, many challenges prior on Eric, and I just went balls to the wall, because you can imagine how invested I was in this game by this point if I have been dreaming about it, like waking up in sweats all the time because I was dreaming about crazy stuff that was happening at tribals or getting voted out or people backstabbing me. And I remember wanting to play it for myself, because even though I didn't feel like I would actually go home. It's just really scary to go home with an idol in your pocket or to play it for someone else after all that work. And so I remember distinctly like being very conflicted on what to do. And I remember I was texting Austin and I was like, I have this idol and I don't know. I'm thinking about playing it for Eric, but I'm so nervous. Like, what do I do? And he was like, I don't know. It's up to you. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go like balls to the wall. And I was like, oh, well, like I'm going to do it. Cause I felt like to an extent, I was pretty confident that it wouldn't be me, but I was still like shitting my pants when I played it because I mean, it's just a terrifying thing. So I can't even imagine how scary that is for CBS Survivor, being on that island and it's like your last day, but that was super cool. And I felt like it was just, I think I said it at Final Tribal. I felt really proud of that moment because I felt like that was like the first time I was really as vulnerable as I could possibly be. And I was putting my neck really out like there for Eric the way that he had for me. And I guess it's like symbolic of all my allies and how loyal they were towards me as well.
It was a very cute moment. Eric, do you have a favorite moment this season?
The whole season or this episode?
This whole season. Yeah, what's your favorite moment from this episode, Eric?
Yeah.
Your favorite episode?
Yeah, this episode, maybe not too many. I think favorite moment probably was just like getting drinks with Faith and Mike. That was
Oh
fun.
my god, on your
That was
21st
fun.
birthday.
That was
Passed
so
out.
fun.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That was so
That
funny.
was so funny.
Yeah, it was like a really it was just really fun, and it was just like nice to see like what you could get out of I guess like being more social. Definitely like expanding my friend group a little bit to like a group of people. No, so I don't like, believe it or not, I don't like go out and like party that much. So it was like a pretty big change of scenery. So it was just like really fun. Like I think that was really fun, and just like meeting like other people who are definitely super different, but still like keeping in touch with most of them, or maybe not most of them, at least some of them, and just having like those connections are really nice. I think so. I think just overall meeting people was like a pretty big highlight of the season.
I personally loved the you and Doug relationship in this season because you start out and it's very clear how much you dislike each other. I love you going to Andrew and be like, you've got to get rid of Doug. He's a huge threat, but he plays like a mediocre player. So it's honestly like, just get rid of him. And then you switch over to the returners because you have to. And Doug's like, I'll get rid of him if I have to. And you guys, because you have to, because you're forced to, finally forge some connection. And then you cut him. And I love that. I love it so much that you cut Doug and he doesn't see it coming. He goes at 6. Like, there's such a beautiful poetry to it. And even at the end, he's telling you, Eric, you could have such a good chance here. He's advocating for you in some way. I just think that's such a beautiful thing. And I know that you and Doug aren't besties, but you're certainly at a better place than you were post-season 7.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to like explain what I meant by mediocre. Like, let's take a different example, right? Like, what would you say is like the strongest animal? And I might say like the strongest animal is like an elephant, but the real answer would be like probably realistic, like an insect, because proportional to like its size, it's really strong, right? So when I say mediocre, I'm not saying bad. I'm saying like what he portrays isn't what you think of, like, oh yeah, this person like super crazy good, but they're still actually really good as like, based on what they're portraying. Obviously didn't communicate that well. Maybe a couple more Toastmaster sessions would help, but that is the intention behind the words, even if it didn't come out that way. So that's definitely a blunder on communication. So I just want to bring that up.
Deceptively powerful would have
Exactly.
been maybe a better way to
Perfect.
say that.
Okay, I was like, proportional to his ability, he is average compared to all other public speakers. Like, I don't know, Doug seems pretty convincing. But
Yeah.
no, I love the shade that you and Morgan would throw to Doug, because it was like, you guys obviously didn't want him to be in the game, but the way you would describe him was like, why is this threatening? It sounds like he's easy to beat. And to be fair, Doug almost went home, incredibly. JS, what was your favorite moment this season?
Oh yeah. I mean, y'all can call me JS, that's fine. But To address the chat, yeah, during COVID, it was very hard to like communicate on Zoom with like the name, and like I was having to like help explain people the name thing, and over video is so hard, so I dropped the S, and I think it was also part of like the maturity dropping the S. So you can call me Jay, you can call me JS, but my favorite thing was if you leave out the S, he'll yell and scream at you. Not anymore, not anymore. My favorite part was winning. That was fun. It was fun to be rewarded. But also, what's so funny about that? I texted Anders this actually. I just thought it was really cute that the final three held hands and like we're hugging each other. I thought that was like very nice and showed like that things came around in a full circle. At least at that point it did. Yeah. And throughout the season, listen, I love good TV, and we delivered good TV, and I loved giving good TV. So most of those good TV moments, I still loved watching. Like I loved watching the final, the Michaela and Fish storming the gym, and me going berserk outside. I mean, come on, that's just. I was waiting every day for that episode.
Episode 10 is one of my favorites because it's so stupid. It's just so dumb. I want to ask for the returnees. So obviously I made the tribes a very specific way, at least insofar of the returnees, because I went, Eric and Doug can't be together. And then I went, all right, Katie and Sherry can't be together. Dylan and Faith can't be together. Morgan and Mike can't be together. So it seemed pretty easy to split it that way. Eric, if you had ended up in Doug's place on Sababa, how do you think you would have done? What do you think that adventure would have been like if you were on Sababa instead of Majesta?
So I've never actually thought about that. I feel like I would have it a lot easier because we would just win more, and I probably would have not had like such a great storyline at all. I probably would have gotten it pretty early. Yeah, because I think I wouldn't have had to play as hard, and I probably would have just coasted, and then I probably would have gotten eliminated. Probably would have been more of a no-name performance. So definitely, like I think me being on the Majesta / a losing tribe, it definitely made for like a better, I guess, storyline for me because I was kind of like put in a position where I had to play. Yeah, like unfortunately, like since it was my second time playing, hopefully it wouldn't have been like that. But even you can see like the early couple of tribals that I was playing in on Majesta, I really wasn't doing too much. I really was just like, okay, I'm in this alliance. This is better than last time. This has to be good enough. And imagine if like we kept on winning challenges and then I would have never known anything. I would have been pretty in the dark about like McQuad or what if there was, or maybe a different alliance would have formed up on Sababa. Maybe I would.
Can you imagine after the Meisner vote, if Majesta never went to tribal, Faith never went home? Everyone's like, why the fuck hasn't she gone home yet? I'd lose my mind.
Exactly.
You don't think you'd be besties with Winnick and Fish and Michaela, Eric? You don't think that you'd form those great?
Even though it didn't work with Fish, like I actually really liked his personality. Like just like before challenges and stuff, it just like I guess I didn't really act on it, and I think that's one of like the things that I probably like it kind of regret. It's kind of like I think there are opportunities where in the moves that were made, I could have like included other people more or like reached out more. Like for example, even if I'm not voting with Fish this time, I can still talk to him, just say like, hey, what's up? And then next time I can talk to him. But really, like a lot of the confessionals you see with like me and Fish, it's like, okay, yeah, I talked to you once, and then you're gone. It's like there was nothing to it. Where maybe like if I worked with him earlier, we could have like maybe had an alliance. So there was like, I think Fish particularly, I really did like his personality. Like he was like he's really fun. He's really like bubbly. Like
Your one night stand.
Exactly.
That part.
Exactly. So I think definitely would have worked. Hopefully, would have worked with people better. But yeah, I think I would have had the chance to work with some of the newbies on that tribe if things weren't so, I don't know, return a newbie, which it seemed like it wasn't on Sababa. So maybe there was a chance.
They didn't have a JS who was so beholden on getting rid of returnees. Katie, if you were switched with Sherry and you were put on Majesta, it's you, Mike, Faith, Eric, and then JS, Tony, Miranda, Jack, Meisner, and Sam. That sounds so bad. How would you feel about it? What do you think
And
your
then
game would
you also don't even get the Sherry quit freebie at the
Oh.
first tribal.
be?
That's so true. Yo, that would be so chaotic because you have JS and Meisner that would automatically team up and try to get me out. But then I also have Tony and Eric, which I feel like I could. Well, I know Tony would vouch for me at least that early on. And then I think the question marks are Jack and Miranda, which I don't know. I think when I met them, since we weren't on the same tribe, I always felt like they never really wanted to work with me because they saw me as a big threat. But like if I had started with them, maybe it could be slightly different if I had a stronger connection. I think probably more so with Jack than Miranda. But if I had a stronger one-on-one connection with them, I could buy some time before mutiny or whatever, I think, to not get voted out. I would definitely probably be open to vote out Mike or Faith, though, earlier compared to the other Survivor returners because I had no relationship with them. And I always saw Faith as a threat as well. I just didn't know how loyal she would be. You know, she's kind of like a Shannon in season 4 of Guts and Glory. And I don't really do well with people who are like extremely strong physical threats that are like, I don't know. They don't like playing with like other girls that are maybe not as like physically.
She loves working with girls, famously.
Not as like physically competitive, I feel. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you don't deserve to be here, that kind of thing. At least that's the energy I got. The way Shannon was like, she was very much like that in season 4.
I do think you and Faith would be the one returner pair that would never work together. Doug is way more malleable, and Faith is like, I'm going to cut anyone that's a threat to me. And also, I've got to be in charge, which is why Mike is great for her. He's okay with that. No, that would have been hell. JS, if you were switched with, let's see, Winnick or Fish, because you can't be switched with Andrew, he can't be with Tony. If you're ending up on Sababa, do you think you could have pulled together what would be, a Sababa quad Baba?
I
Worse.
don't think. I just the moment I saw Katie, I just didn't want to. I was scared of her, very scared. I think I could have been in trouble. Sabrina and I went to high school together, so I know I would have had her. Winnick, clearly,
Which would have been really helpful.
super helpful. She mastered that first vote. Winnick, one of the dumbest players in the game, he would have, which is so mean to say, but yeah. He was. He played that so wrong. And I was coaching him every step of the way, and he did it so badly. But yeah, Winnick, I feel like I could have easily gotten to work with me. Doug and I obviously had a connection that I think I could have done. Who are the other? I never liked Dylan. I think I met up with him one time, and I came to the meeting with like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say this. Well, whatever. I was in the library, and I came in just sweatpants, and I told him that I was free balling. And it just didn't go well. Like, it went so poorly. I just didn't like the guy. He didn't like me.
That's crazy. That's crazy that it didn't go well.
So crazy. That wasn't in the episode, I don't think.
No, obviously not.
Who else is over there?
I would have stopped watching the season, Andrew. That's what.
Andrew, yeah, I think Andrew and I had like a connection. But if I went hard against returnees over there, I think Katie Allen just would have taken me out first. So.
I think as soon as you told Andrew we should get out Katie on, Andrew would have been like, JS needs to go, and then
it'd be done.
Yeah.
It'd be done.
Well, I'm glad I didn't put you guys on the same tribe. I think that would have been. You know what? Looking more and more at it, I'm so glad I split the tribes how I did because Jesus Christ, it would have been awful otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Erin. What are some funny moments you had from this episode or thoughts you had from this episode? You obviously took a lot of notes. You're the one person here who didn't have the greatest perspective on what might happen.
Yeah,
you obviously thought Andrew would come back from...
And I've been saying that, and I was still shocked that it didn't happen. Yeah, I have 3.5 pages of notes on this episode, which is more than I've had on any. So let me just go through...
which is good, because this was the longest episode by
I'd love
far.
to read the final paragraph.
let's go through the quotes that I have written down first. I've Sam just at the top of the episode. There are no friends in this game, which I thought was a great, and I'm still waiting for that too, Andrew. Which I just thought was a great quote. I think that was that in contention for episode title? Because if not, it should have been.
No, I have been sold on not all heroes are perfect from the moment I was cutting these confessionals together. I went, this is such a perfect quote because I don't think that any of these people represent a perfect hero, and I don't think that any of them winning is a heroic ending. Like maybe Eric, honestly, but even then, it's like, maybe. The way that he finessed Tony is such a funny episode. That is one of my favorite episodes are the Winnick going home episode because it's so complicated and so ridiculous. The Fish going home episode because it's just fighting for the last 30 minutes, and then Tony going home because a 4-1 vote at 7 a.m. is just like, Eric, why? Like it was unnecessary to do, but I loved it. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
I guess my comment on the Tony thing was, I don't know, like, I think it looked really genuine, but definitely in the back of my mind the whole time was kind of like a fool me once, but you can't fool me twice. So it just happened to work out when we proposed the alliance that like he's gonna be safe. So I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm totally gonna make sure your name isn't gonna be put out there. And it was just really easy to do. And then it was like, okay, maybe like a vote or two down the line, I really need to know where he's gonna be voting. And it turned out that was the vote that it ended up being like over the top and unnecessary, but I knew where his vote was going and I had like, just the confidence. So those things, it's like, I guess, kind of pretty manipulative, definitely. But I think those are things that like you want to do to make sure you can make it further, right? So I think that's why.
It was a great thing to do in case JS had an idol or some other tomfoolery. It's just also funny. I mean,
Yeah.
Tony was a very difficult ally to read because his emotions did fluctuate very heavily in a way that was much more emotional than maybe he wanted to portray it. Similar to JS, which is why they got along really well and then didn't. But Erin, sorry, your notes.
No, you're so fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can have a little tangents on any of these things that I'm bringing up. Yeah, we brought up in the last live show about how Doug had to like help out with that challenge right after being voted out, which really sucked. Like that poor man.
Oh yeah, the challenge happened maybe 20 minutes after he got voted out. So I say, all right, you've got to read these questions. So Katie, Eric, and JS are all running up to him and be like, give me this so I can go.
And then like trying to jury manage him as they're like doing their shit. I'm like,
well, notably only JS and Katie. JS going, true. I didn't have any part of it, and Katie going, I'm so sorry. Meanwhile, Eric's like, see ya. Also, for people confused on this, I don't even remember if I told the jury where to stand, but like, we placed them in several areas. Jack, for some reason, just could not be seen by anyone.
No, I was like, the added level of that competition being like, find Jack was so funny.
The intention of the challenge wasn't for you to need to find these people. It was just to have you run a bunch. So when it came down to no one can find Jack, I'm like, okay. And by the way, that took a while. By the way, it took a while. Like it was it was at least 30 minutes of people, or at least like 15 minutes of people looking for Jack. And so at a certain point, I'm like, Jack's. It was a while, dude.
I thought crazy. I thought I had seen her like earlier on, but I realized that no one else had gone over there, and so I saved her for last.
I think what you might have done is maybe that is Jack, but I don't think you knew it was Jack until the end because like you thought maybe that's Jack. No one went over, and then when you were like, where could Jack be? You probably were like, that must be Jack.
Yeah. Also, she was like standing behind, like there was a light coming from, Lord knows what that building is called. 7 years later, but she was staying like behind the light in like the complete dark, and so it was very hard to see her.
Oh look, I zoomed in on her and went, "There's Jack." I knew where she was, so it was just funny that at the end you guys were searching, and Morgan had to run over and be like. Also, Morgan runs over and says, "Katie, I know where she is," and says, "But let's gather her up first before I say it." It's like Morgan, time is of the essence. Just shout it out.
Yeah.
No, anyway, so
that was insane.
Very funny challenge in that regard.
Yeah, in that regard, that was very funny. I loved both of the little jury segments where in the final 5 they like pass the box of Cheez-Its to each other and then they pass the umbrella to each other. Final 4, I thought that was super cute. I love those little moments. What else? Some of these are not funny. They're just notes. Morgan had so many iconic, so many more iconic quotes. Obviously, this episode, she was like, "It would be funny if it was us in the final 3." I was like, "Yeah, that would be funny. That would be great." What a queen. She said, "I'm the new Sam." I couldn't even pay them to vote me out, which then she did get voted out.
Then she says black people don't eat bugs, and I'm
Yep.
mixed, so I don't eat bugs.
Yep, that was good. You saying in the Final 4 challenge, Eric is a whiz at eating. I was like, that's kind of interesting.
No, I meant eating challenges, which he's famously good at.
Yeah, but you just said eating.
Well, yeah.
Katie calling Eric her angel, I thought was really cute.
I can't vote out my angel.
He's my angel.
God, Anders, you really put in some really cringy content.
I know, that was so cute,
You were
Katie.
dying. I was like,
That was so cute.
And the music, oh my goodness, it really exacerbated it all.
You guys came to this was like right after the Final 4 challenge. You come to my room and Eric's like, "You've got to vote me out." And you're like, "Eric, no, I can't. Like, I'm such a bad person." And Eric's like, "No, you're not." I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I don't think I'm asking any questions. I'm just there watching you two like have your therapy session. I don't know what you thought that scene was. Like, you guys, basically, it's Eric telling you you're not a bad person, and you're telling Eric, "I'm not going to vote you out." It's like, Jesus Christ.
Dude, that was like emotional in the footage, but I feel like it wasn't even the raw footage, because I remember after we lost Final 4 to JS, I was so upset. We were both so upset, and we were in the parking lot walking to, I think, take the confessional or whatever towards like Oakland or something, and I was like crying. Like, I was so upset because it was like Eric was like, "Oh, it's okay, you can just vote me out, like just go to the end with JS, like I'll vouch for you and make sure like you can take the win." And I was like, "I'm not doing that, stop saying that." And I was like crying, and then I think in the confessional it was like a little more muted because I had already cried. And it was also 8 a.m. when we did that freaking Final 4 challenge.
This was 8 a.m. when you were crying.
Literally.
Oh my god.
You also had a full conversation with Eric, and then we did your confessional, and by then you had sort of gotten through all of it. And then we did Eric, who was like, "Fuck this game, fuck JS, like I want to leave." And then also the Morgan stuff is also so funny when she's in a room with JS calling you and just straight to JS's face. "Yeah, haven't we fooled him like 8 times or whatever?" It's like, damn, Morgan literally just is having so much fun being an asshole to JS right now. God, it's.
Can we talk about that vote though?
What do you want to talk about? Morgan lied to you for the entire day?
No, yes. Well, no, Morgan quitting. I don't know. Like, I don't think Morgan, I love Morgan. I love Morgan's confessionals. I think she's hilarious. But I don't think Morgan, like, put her all in. And while I think it's super impressive that people are falling on the swords for Katie on, but I also don't know if everyone in the jury, like, respected Morgan and even Katie to an extent because she did that. Like, that's kind of what Tony was saying, which I know Tony, is bitter, but
I
don't
would
know
love
if
to
everyone.
talk about Tony's speech.
Tony famously screeching at Katie making Final 3. I mean, what I'll say to that is that Morgan falling on the sword wasn't just, "I really want Katie to win." It was specifically because she felt she didn't want to be in that position, like, Molly or, that sometimes people, or like Tim was in, where you go to Final Tribal and it's just people attacking your game. Like, Morgan, number one, doesn't play with that. She clearly will put you in your place if you're going to comment on her. And she was like, "I don't need people telling me my game was bad." Like, I don't even think Morgan's game was bad. I just think that she didn't play as effective of a game as you all did. Like, there's a reason Morgan was never targeted, and it wasn't just Morgan wasn't doing anything. She was very socially enjoyable, but she wasn't as outwardly strategic as everyone else. So when it came to Final 4, yeah, she told Katie and Eric, like, "Look, I think at this point, if it can't be an all returning final three, and I'm just going to get roasted by the jury, send me the fuck there. Like, I don't know if Katie and Eric, you want to comment on how Morgan expressed to you, like, probably just vote me out. But yeah, obviously that was what she said, and I edited that out because guess how fun a vote is when you know someone's like, vote me out. And it isn't Eric who's being told, I'm not voting you out.
I was gonna say that does change things because I was like, Katie's so mean for like leaning her head on Morgan as she's like voting her ass out.
No, I think it was like right before the tribal, like it was very last minute. She kind of was like, hey, what if like you guys just voted me? But honestly, that was the plan all along. Eric and I had planned to vote Morgan, and I was like lying to her face, saying like, we're in it till the end, right? We're voting egg roll because I needed her to vote egg roll for us to be able to do the 2-1-1. And then in the end, she suggested it herself, so that was like the most ideal outcome because then I'm not like backstabbing her as well. And yeah, I thought it was. I mean, we were grateful, but like, yeah, I could see how for the jury, it didn't really help. I was also very disappointed in Morgan because she was the person that spoiled to me that no one thought I deserved the win. But also she told me if she got voted out that she would go and, go to bat for me like 2 days.
And she did not. She did not go to bat for you.
And even her question wasn't even it wasn't like a Jack advocating for Eric. Like Jack was literally campaigning, but Morgan was just like, okay, so Katie, tell everyone, what did you do? Like,
and then going, so long-winded.
Yeah, like I don't know what that was. I was like, we literally worked all game together. It was crazy. Like, I don't know. I was very disappointed because she was the only person I feel like that could have done that for me since I understood that Doug and Tony and Andrew could be a bitter or like just not down to do that.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. I think Morgan's situation is definitely different from mine. For me, it's like a situation where I don't want to be here anymore. So it's like the best outcome. Like the game fundamentally changed for me, right? If the goal of a game isn't to win anymore, then like it opens the world of possibility to anything. Like imagine if I screwed over the last challenge just so JS couldn't win and you had to redo it. That'd be terrible, right? No one would like that. That'd be bad for the show, but it would be great for me. I would feel so great. Like just that like instant revenge would be so great. Like, and there's like so many things that like probably could have done that would have felt great in the moment that wouldn't be good for like TV. Like even like at the very end holding hands, like that's a good TV moment. Probably not representative of like actual real life feelings, but it was like a good moment for TV, right? So it's like, okay, might as well do it. It's kind of like, I guess like maybe like some things that I did were also just for show, and I think I think some of that was that. But I think the big thing is like if the game fundamentally changes for you, like for Morgan, I don't want to speak for her, but I'm gonna do it anyways. It's like I'm sure she doesn't want to be like harassed at Final Tribal Council. So if you don't want to be harassed there, then the game changes. It stops being I still want to win. It's like I don't want people to like harass me. And for something as low stakes as Survivor Maryland, it's like there's a reason that people would probably not like put their all into something at the very end.
And I think that's so fair. I mean, like, you want to go to Final Tribal because you think you can win. If you have a feeling you're not going to win, and worse, you're going to have to deal with people being annoying to you for 3 hours. Yeah, I would also be like, no, fuck you. If I have to be in Final 3, I'm going to be the most irritating person to talk to. Like, if someone comes up and goes, what did you even do? I go, bitch, I got here. What did you do? Which is also why
exactly,
I think...
Sam. Exactly.
I don't even get me started on the fucking question. To be clear, and I want to actually clear this up. Sam didn't even come in with a question. All right.
Oh, that was clear. That was clear.
No, because who came right before
Sam? I actually quite liked it.
Okay, well, Sam literally, someone else wanted to ask fuck, marry, kill, and I went, no, you've already asked a question, moving on. And then Sam goes, can I just ask it? I went, fine. And then she asks it, and it's just like, it's not a good question. It's funny, but it's like, girl, moving on.
I'm guessing that it was like that every finalist had like long enough answers that you cut it down to highlights. Like they were giving actual reasonings to like their
and also importantly, Katie was like, who do I pick? And Fish went, you don't need to give a reason. And she went, I'm killing Fish, and here's why. And it's like, you don't need to give her... It was like, there was only one good answer from each person, because otherwise it was like weird or bad or not really an answer. Because it's just a weird question. But whatever. I think Sam's incredible, and I think I don't think she would ever win in a million years with this jury.
Never.
But
I texted her the other day.
I did write down my answer to that question, by the way, but we can talk about that.
Oh, I want to hear that.
Well, we know who the kill is.
Yeah, that was pretty.
Oh
easy.
wait, you can't tell me. I'm
Tony
on
and
the
Zaya.
jury.
No, it's just the jury.
Tony.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, and who would be the F?
I want you to guess.
Okay, Mary is Andrew.
No, because he's my son.
No. Oh,
Yeah.
you're right. Okay.
He's your son, so he's not fuck either. I hope.
No, he is not.
Is Mary Doug?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay, and then
yeah,
F is
Dylan.
Yep.
okay. I was gonna say Jack, but that's okay. Cool.
Well, yeah, I'm straight, so.
Well,
No,
I was going with like the whole like everything is
Yeah.
like in the metaphorical way.
Exactly.
So, anyways, that question fucking sucks. I do love Morgan coming up and immediately going, now that Tony's done sucking JS off. It's so aggro for incredibly no reason, but it's just so funny.
It was just it was a flashback moment too for me for Survivor Michigan season 4 when Nate comes in and is like everybody here is like balls deep on Dale's like which, fair.
I mean, look, you know what? She calls him like she sees him. And I think it was very funny. What were we even talking about? Any other notes from you, Erin, about funny moments that you had?
I think that's it for funny moments because this was just more of like this was a great episode, but it was definitely leaned more emotional than funny.
Certainly.
So that's I think that's all.
And the
have
last
for
paragraph.
Oh, I'll give you my last little like half page of notes here. Well, first of all, I wrote down who voted for everybody, and I have Dylan, Miranda, Jack, Morgan, and Dead to Me. And then I have, I'm sorry if is not an apology, by the way. So if you're ever apologizing, don't say I'm sorry if, because if you're apologizing, you should mean it. It's not an if. And I said not 4 a.m. That's funny. And then I said definitely not a game that I liked nor respected. I agree with everything that Eric and Jack said. Jury full of hateful people, TBH.
Look, I think that they went off what they knew, and there just wasn't enough advocacy for Katie, and there wasn't enough advocacy from Eric about his own game.
Yeah, and I will say, I'm like seeing in the chat too, where Andrew's saying like I, like got this from my perspective, like this is what I saw in the game, which is like it's fair, but and like Jack is saying like I think that we didn't see like all of these people that were Katie's number ones like throughout like blah blah blah, and it's like. I get that. I know that unfortunately, Final Tribal sometimes doesn't do much. But I'm like, were you guys talking to each other? Because so many people in that jury could have come in and said, wow, I can't believe Katie did that to me. She was my number one. Like, were they not comparing notes to be like, oh, all of this happened, like, blah, blah, blah? Or, like, was Andrew just sitting there just thinking about the pre-jury, like the pre-merge, and not taking into account anything that happened after? Like, I don't know. That's just, like, that's confusing to me.
You just have to think about who holds the information. The two people with the most information heading into jury, they're not going to be Fish. They're not going to be Michaela. They're not going to even be Dylan. Like, Dylan had a very narrow view of what was happening. It's going to be Tony, who knew what was happening on both sides, and then Doug, who made it as far as he could and was, not to compare him to Sam or Morgan, but theoretically doing more. And those two people sort of held they bottlenecked a lot of that information. That one could assume would be most effective in describing the games of more than just JS.
Yeah, fair.
And newbies did not want veterans to win. Like, I just have to remind you guys that. Like, newbies did not want that. And then they let the veterans outplay all of them. And me. Me and the veterans outplayed most of the newbies.
And I think that's also, to Andrew's point, that's where kind of like, and I wanted to say this earlier, like, you also have to play to, like, the ego of your jury. And like that sounds terrible, and like I don't want to say that this was a completely egotistical jury, but like that is something you have to play to. Like Katie was saying earlier, like trying to take credit for moves that you did together. It's like, yeah, if you're trying to take credit for a move that a juror feels that they were partially responsible for, and they have a big ego, they're not going to respect that. they're gonna cut you down, and even if they come in like wanting to advocate for you, they're gonna say like, no, actually that was my move. And so it's like when you have people that go out and like even if it's valid, like I do sit here believing that Doug is one of the best college survivor players that I've watched. I don't think that he should have had like a big ego about it. I think with that he should have respected the game of the other people, and yeah, like Andrew said, gone in advocating more for the person that he played super closely with, which I guess yeah was both Katie and JS. But like should have gone in allowing Katie to take a little more credit for the things that they were doing together. But like that is something that you just have to play to, and sometimes that's not about final tribal, sometimes that's just about playing like throughout the game. But like people are going to have egos and they're going to carry it with them on the jury, and that might prevent them from advocating for somebody that played a really good game if it was alongside them because they want the credit for it.
Yeah, and I think that when we also look at it, it's how people present themselves at Final Tribal. It's how they describe it, and it's how they express it. And like in playing to those egos, it's being able to say, you know, like for instance, I look at Katie's answer for her biggest regret, and her regret was not being so aggro at challenges, which I think the answer that maybe some of the jurors wanted was like, but making someone feel betrayed or doing this or that, which I don't think, honestly, you should feel regret for doing that. Like, getting rid of Andrew, Tony, and Doug was all the right move. The perspective on they were going to cut me at 4 is the right move, and I want to get rid of them before that. Obviously, it just comes down to how it was done and how they felt about it. And that's how a lot of it was. Like, JS intended to get rid of Doug before Final 3. JS probably didn't even want Tony at Final 3 because, well, Tony was just more... somehow, Tony was more likable than JS to a lot of people on the jury. And but the difference is that JS never. You know what? Again, it's all
people
about.
People really liked Tony. People really liked him,
and he was very nice to the people in the game until they were returners, and they weren't working with him because he was on their other different side. But like, JS didn't have to make any moves against these people, so they just weren't mad at him for it, even if he didn't. Well, like at least insofar of Doug and Tony. They had no reason to be mad at JS. Someone who, in the game, during the game, they were very much, I want to get rid of him, I don't want to work with him. Because at the end of the day, he didn't make them feel like, oh, I'm so dumb for trusting you, or, oh, you tricked me, you manipulated me. And then you also, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, too, I'll give you some compliments here, JS, is that like you played a very individualistic game, which I think was very beneficial to this jury, where nobody was sitting there saying like you had allies, but you were never necessarily like in partnership with them. Everything you were doing was seen as things that you were doing, not something you were doing with somebody else. So it's like you played very closely with Doug, obviously, but you played on opposite sides. So he was never going to be like, oh, I'm going to try and take credit for anything that JS was doing, like anything like that. So I think that really behooved you, like for this jury in particular as well.
Also, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I definitely feel like jumping around, voting with these people is like a fun way to play, but also like, for me, smarter. Like I was never about like, I always thought about, oh, okay, he's gone. I was always about like, so what is the strategic thing for Eric to do? Or what is the strategic thing for this person to vote for? Let me talk to those people and let's get those people together, right? But also like, I played a very dominant game up until like final 8-7, right? And then at that point, my number was up. I didn't have enough votes. And every single vote after that, final 6, final 5, final 4, the veterans were going to vote for me. I was up a creek without a paddle, and they wanted to vote for me, A, because, you know, they didn't want me there, and B, I could win, and C, you know, I was an annoying piece of shit, right? But every single time,
there were a lot of reasons they wanted to get rid of you.
But I kept winning, and so every single tribal, you know, I would make that very clear. I was like, listen, they want me out, but I won. And I think that also was very impressive. It's like they kept wanting me out and were vocal about that, but I was the foil that got to the end. And I think, you know, and listen, I don't love it when I watch, you know, a Survivor player comp his way to the end, but I was a Survivor player that played great and then comped his way to the end. And I think that also, because I'm seeing a lot of Discord in the chat about like, you know, he shouldn't have won, and like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have. but I'm just explaining why.
You can't be mad at JS for winning. He didn't choose to win.
Yeah, I just threw all these comps, and about that, I will say
You can be
that.
fucking annoyed. And I'll tell you what, I still don't to this day believe for a second you threw all those comps.
I threw Dizzy Bat for sure. I remember like jumping onto that thing, and
Girl,
I'm
in
very
the
good
round
at
between
aiming.
you, Michaela, and Morgan, no one
I would have won that
threw.
one. I totally would have. Hi! Oh, look at this wonderful. See, that's the alliance right
The
there.
real AA.
Oh, you guys all look so good together.
We have a panel now. I love it.
We have
If I wasn't in Europe, I'd be there.
The four besties. Well, so I do have a question for, I guess Jack can also include. Also, another one of my favorite moments of this episode is Jack's, not all of Jack's speech. I think a lot of it does, it just goes on and on. But I do think Jack's expression of what, it does. All right, I had to cut it down. But I think Jack's expression of what Survivor Maryland is, what it stands for, and why it's important is precisely the reason why she's a great host, is this idea of it's about bringing people together that you wouldn't see otherwise. It's about having fun. It's about playing a game, but playing it for the purpose of having fun, building community. Even if you are voting each other out for the purpose of building and expressing and growing. But on that level, it's been 7 years since this all happened, and you have time to obviously look at, but you also have this game to reflect on. I guess for everyone here, how do we feel looking back on this? What's something that we've really grown from? What's something that you feel like you've changed so much from, or you got from this experience of Survivor Maryland Winner Take All? Yeah, Jay, if you want to start on how you've changed in the 7 years, hopefully it's more than just I'm a nicer person. I go by Jay now.
Listen, I'm still not a perfect person. I still love attention. I have gotten better at not talking over people. Watching the scenes where I just literally don't let people speak is probably the worst thing. Like, oh my God, it's so horrible to watch. I've gotten better about that. Got better at listening, thinking before I speak. Listen, I'm not perfect. I still like antics and having fun. But, how you make people feel and how you treat people is important. And, now I work in television. I'm a producer. And, like, literally it's about how you make your cast members feel, that gets you the product you want, right? Like, they're not going to be comfortable on camera if you treat them like shit, right? So I've learned a lot through my career. And, yeah, see, I've always loved TV. I that's what I've learned. How you treat people is important.
Which is why every time you see someone cry on TV, it's JS screaming at them behind the camera.
Nope.
Also, real quick before I go to the others, I think it's such a funny moment, Eric slapping JS, because JS did the exact same thing to Tony during the balloon stomp challenge, and it's just like, girl, I hear myself go, oh no, because I'm like, girl, this is so not serious. Why are we mad about these? It's just. The whole thing was so ridiculous, that reaction to, or JS' reaction to all of it, but that whole fucking moment was awful. Eric, how do you feel like in the 7 years and experiencing Winner Take All has, what changes have you felt that you've made? What experience did you gain from it? What did you learn from this experience?
I'm not sure if it's just Winner Take All, but definitely over the past 7 years, I think just growing more socially. Definitely, like, I think this season had like a lot of sparks there where I used to only kind of like hang out with my own friend group, and I wouldn't really try too many new things. But definitely after 2 seasons of Survivor Maryland, definitely more open to just like doing things that are kind of crazy. And like after meeting Mike and Faith, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I do like clubbing. And yeah, I think just like growing and being open to more experiences and just being more social in general is probably like the biggest way I've grown in the past 7 years. Even though I'm still like pretty introverted and like keep to myself, but definitely a little bit more open to adventure, I guess. Yeah.
Katie, what about for you?
I think that for me, similar to JS, I feel like I learned a lot more empathy over time, I guess in different situations. Like, I think I reflected a lot in this game in particular about like why I only got 1 vote, and like I guess like what I could have done differently, and like trying to understand the perspective, especially for people I was close to that didn't vote for me. And obviously it doesn't always apply like in real life, like people are voting for you, but just when you think about like from a perspective of like what things matter to others and like how you communicate with them and prioritize, like even when you talk to your manager or like at work, like what is important to different people on a personal level, but at work too. I also think I've worked on being a little less explosive. I feel like I was like that in Guts and Glory and in season 8, especially towards the end. I mean, I've definitely had my fair share of moments like yelling at bouncers and stuff, but I feel like I'm a little better. I still have a fiery personality at times, but I think I'm a little more tamed 7 years later. I would say those are my 2 things.
Bouncers aren't people anyway. It's
Whoa, that's so fucked up. Hey, they deserve your respect, but also sometimes fuck them. I mean, I think some important context of the Final Four tribal was that wasn't that the day of the bar crawl, the senior bar crawl? It was, but I'm pretty sure you were probably drunk, which is why you felt such a way about it. Also, every conversation with Katie and JS is basically a we don't listen competition, because it's Katie. If you ever go back and rewatch, it's JS going, can you go, yeah, and then Katie's going and JS like, yeah. But actually, it's just like, damn, these people could be saying nonsense and they're just not listening. And then they both walk away and go, this person's lying to me.
For this episode, I was like, I'm looking into your eyes, and you are lying to me right now.
In the beginning of the episode, JS going, you could have told me. And Katie's like, yeah, but I didn't want to. It's like, no, it's okay. It's like, damn, both of you need to shut the fuck up. Both of you need to just say, look, we know what we're doing. All right, bye.
I'm still a line-by-line narrator, though, when I tell stories and when I send texts. Like a text person.
Getting texts from you, it's like 8 texts in a row.
Yeah.
I recently saw Katie at a wedding of one Austin, and Katie still tells a story by repeating verbatim what happens, and it's my favorite quirk about Katie. Jack, are you there? Where'd you go? I was going to ask you, obviously, so much happened between the 7 years of playing winner take all as a second semester freshman and you having an apartment in New York where currently Katie and Eric are. What would you say is like what you gained from winner take all, or what did you take away from this experience?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson learned, and I think Katie touched on it and Eric too, like is like the communications piece of when talking to people and like getting buy-in, especially for, I think I see this most in the work setting. Like how do you get people on board with your ideas in a way where they feel like they're contributing to it as well, or like they are driving part of it instead of this is my idea, top-down decisions, go do it. And if you don't do what I like I'm not going
to vote them out.
More work on your plate. So I think there have been so many lessons learned and ways that I've seen that social dynamic play out in different parts of my life. And I've learned so much also like life lessons. I think being a freshman from like making really great friends from this season of Survivor, JS, you included.
Jack, your speech at the end was very touching. How much of that was, a reason for you wanting to host? Like, what was your hosting philosophy? And how much of playing in this season, a season that I would say is probably one of the more, not the most, fiery or controversial seasons in that way?
Yeah, I love Survivor. I came in as such a huge fan of the show. It drove me to want to play. I think though one of the toughest parts about like a college show is you are playing this game about lying and manipulation, but then you go and you're a friend, and then you go and you're a sibling or a student, or you're balancing all these different roles. And I'm like to this day like still amazed and also baffled by how JS you could manage and like keep those lines. And I think the part of the FTC speech that got missed is like, do you feel like those lines ever crossed? And I think if you said no, I think I might have voted for you. But when you were like, oh yeah, those parts of my life where I was a character in the game did cross over at times to my personal life. I was like, okay, like, yeah, then this game had a net negative effect on you as a person. And I loved how Survivor allowed people to find new experience, like new parts of themselves, like come to these realizations and grow. And when I heard that the club was going to end after season 12, I was like, this is too important to me to like give other people those growth opportunities to make these friends, to like live out their dreams of being like playing this game, but on a smaller scale, where maybe if you have anxiety about being canceled and without the audience of like millions of people watching you, you have that chance to still experience that, was like super critical to me, and why I decided to host 13 and 14.
That's great. I mean, for me, I was not thinking about growth opportunities for people when I said I want to host. I was thinking about how can I better people. I said, this is so fun, and it seemed like a really, like, I love this competition. I love the idea of being able to compete with people in a simulated environment that wasn't like, this isn't life or death. This isn't for $1 million. This is just finding people who also want to be competitive, who want to play games, and who want to, like, you know, in a way, act out being ruthless. So I came out at a different perspective than you and wanting to host it, but I love that what you took from it is a betterment of people. Because for me, I did not view it as how do I make people better. Because I'm gonna tell you what, I don't think season 7 made people better. But I'm glad it existed. I'm glad you took over, because I think you are you had a very clear point of view in what you wanted. I think you strove to build that, and I think you did. And it's still kicking. You know, people are asking when's the next season, and to my answer to that is Jesus Christ. Can't we just enjoy things that exist now? When is the next thing? What about the current thing? Huh? What about being in the present? Let's rewatch Winner Take All. Let's rewatch and enjoy it. Season 9. How about you get back to watching Winner Take All? Anyways, yeah. If you guys could go back and play Winner Take All again, let's say you were transported right back into February of 2017, with all you know now, how do you think you would change your game? How do you think you would want to be portrayed or want to play your game if you could? Jack, for you are going back as the 2024 Jack who has survived a double major as a business and computer science person, who has hosted Survivor Maryland, and you are a second semester freshman. How do you come into Survivor Maryland now, and how do you change how you play?
Yeah, I think I didn't realize talking along tribe lines was a thing you could do or socially accepted. I think in my head, this was still Survivor on an island. You're not allowed to talk to the other tribe. So I think there were people, like when we walked in in 2 initial groups. And one of the people in my initial groups who I really enjoyed was Andrew. I think we had really great conversations about, like, probably by far best first impression. So probably would have tried to maintain a relationship there. I think Katie was another person. I think like we just like personality wise really clicked, but I didn't realize that you could. And I think also knowing how fluid the game is, I think one fault of my personality that has bit me in other areas is I think I am still to this day loyal to a fault. And I think knowing what I know now, would I change that? I think I would have probably used Survivor Maryland and Winner Take All as a chance to experience or like experiment with, okay, how can I stay loyal to who I am, but not like, and sometimes prioritize Jack over some other people I hold very close to my heart.
Katie, you are going back 2024, having done so well in Guts and Glory, Winner Take All, and Generations at Core, which is such a funny season for you to have been on and make so far. You're going back, knowing all that you know, being who you are now, into that 2017 mindset of Katie on, I want to prove I'm good. How do you change that perspective? What do you do differently?
Honestly, I feel like I played the hell out of that game. Like, I really don't know how much I could change or do differently. Like, I really feel like I put everything into it. I especially felt like after losing that first challenge, I was like really deep in the trenches because the day of our first day, right after we lost that challenge, I flew to California for a conference like that same day from Sunday to Wednesday. And I'm pretty sure Tribal was on Thursday. So I was like screwed because I thought everyone would want me out and I couldn't really make the connections in person. Which I thought was my forte. And so I thought I was toast. And once I made it past that, I was like, okay, maybe I have a chance here. But I think if I could say like some regrets or things I would have done differently is I think at final 6, I would have gotten good enough sleep and not gone out to Cornerstone with JS, which is a bar, the night before. And I would have stayed on that pole until I like passed out. Like I literally would not have let go. That's probably my biggest regret in the game. And I also think at final tribal, I wish I was not influenced by like, Morgan telling me how the jury felt and just articulated everything and took more credit for the things I did in the game, especially with like the relationship with Tony, because I think that was the biggest blind spot. Like after final tribal ended, when I told the jury, they were like, that's what you should have said. Like, why didn't you say any of this? Like what you're telling us right now is like way more compelling than anything you said at final tribal. And I was like, well, damn. And I think in the end, like in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that would have been smart. But I think my heart was just like so in it. At that point, I felt just so terrible as a person. And the whole birthday thing really was shocking. And I guess it was just like really timely, but also really sad. Yeah, I think also seeing like in the voting confessional, like how bitter Tony still was, I was like, damn, like I never had his vote to begin with. Like the moment I voted him out, I'm pretty sure I was like dead in the water. So I don't know why, like, I don't know. I guess I was still so like hurt and like trying to salvage that friendship throughout the entire game and afterwards too. So that was really sad for me, honestly. It's done a little watching that.
I mean, I think it's impossible to know how someone is going to react when you're playing a game with them. And I think that is what makes, I think Survivor Maryland is a great social experiment in that regard of like friendship outside the game might not survive a game like Survivor Maryland, because you saw even with Doug, who was working with his two closest friends, when he treated them poorly, it did affect their friendship, even though Doug and Santi and Tim are still very close to this day. But the fact that the way that you can make people feel in this game, in this artificial game for $100, does matter. I mean, we saw it this season, but friendship takes it to a different level of you know each other outside of the game, how you view each other. There's this perception, and it changes when you start having to exclude each other, when you start having to be manipulative, when you start having to lie. And I think it's impossible to know, is this person going to stay friends with me? And obviously you want to keep this person as a friend. You're coming in knowing you have to vote each other out, but you don't want to come in and burn it expecting it to already be burned, because that's the worst thing you can do, is to then have destroyed it if he could have been swayed. Obviously, Tony was someone who just, after being voted out, was unwilling to look past it, viewed it very differently. You couldn't have known that, and you didn't want to be the reason to break it after that point. No, but I think that's very well said, and bitter people are going to be bitter, as is their right. Eric, what about for you?
Yeah, I think one thing that I neglected to do in the game was to have like good like secondary relationships. So like my primary relationships, like I had a lot of loyalty with. That's all great, but then even that, as I said earlier, like I didn't really like reach out to fish, and even for the mutiny, like imagine a scenario where like I didn't only like that I talked to Sababa newbies and I said, hey, I'm trying to work with you guys, and like I maybe it wouldn't have worked out, but it was still like an avenue I just didn't even explore, and maybe it would have bit me in the back. But I think like these like sort of things, just like not even considering the option is kind of like bad. So maybe it's not even necessarily doing that, but at least considering more options. I think for some of the things that I did, I didn't consider options that were definitely available, but were probably uncomfortable. So like that mutiny example is just one of them. Playing the mutiny earlier, even though like Mike was like, nah, Mike didn't want me to play the mutiny because like Dylan wasn't feeling it, but like maybe we should have just played it anyways. Like there's like a lot of mistakes of just like listening to other people and not really like looking at things like from like a full perspective that I think like going back, a lot of those like mistakes probably could be rectified, and definitely like just looking for more options opposed to like trying to make whatever plan that I have work, which like clearly it didn't. Like there was no way to save Mike. So probably should have just played the mutiny, and then that would save Mike.
I remember that day so clearly. I'm like, okay, they're probably going to mutiny. And then I waited so long for you to say something and you didn't. I'm like, what the fuck? Why aren't they mutinying? What is wrong with
That was
them?
crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like so many mistakes of just not considering options, and like I think like definitely could go back and rectify some of those. Yeah.
I will say though, like I love the comment you made early in this game. Like I'm forced to play the social game, but I know that you obviously weren't thrilled. You had to lower yourself to being social. But I think, despite what you might reflect on it, I think it really did work well. Like even though McQuad would never work with you, like they were just really stuck in their own world, despite wanting JS out. The efforts you did put in with Jack and Tony especially did pay dividends at a certain point. And I think it's the fact that you are such a genuine person when you would interact with them. And I think on some level it's because you felt like this will have no effect, so I might as well just be upfront and honest about it. But I think that worked to your benefit because, like, as JS said in the final 6 or final 7, like when Eric tells you something, he's being honest. Like I can trust when Eric says, I don't want to get rid of you this round, because he's not saying that to flatter me. He's saying that because even though he wants me out, it's not this round. And I think your social game was really good. I mean, somehow it won Katie over, and Katie had a plethora of options. But no, I do love that. And I do love your loyalty to Mike, even to the point of just letting you both die and then bring up the suicide bomb. Oh God, when you brought up the suicide bomb, I was like, in what world am I naming it the suicide bomb?
In the world you name something the black vote.
The
Andrew.
black
All right.
In 2017.
Yeah.
2017 and also whatever. All right, Sam still got it. Imagine if JS had gotten and go, I'm going to use the black vote. No, you're not. We're changing it.
It's just censored in all of the episodes.
I just go, look, it's actually called this now. And
It's
JS
called the
would
gay
have done it.
vote.
I'm using the gay vote.
Happy Pride.
I wanted to bring up that I think for that voting confessional, I thought it was so funny because Tony's voting confessional was Eric has a bomb. I'm not voting for him.
Eric has a bomb. Hey, you come to tribal council and say, I have a bomb. You can't vote for me. What? Also, real quick, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. I'm sure I have. That something that never got brought up and I edited out. There were a lot of game changers that were never found or never used. One of the most important that was found and never used was Michaela's vote steal. She had it the whole game, never used it, never even contemplated using it. And she could have used it at the Winnick vote and it would have mattered. She could have used it at her vote, it would have mattered. She could have used it at the Fish vote to do something. But that girl didn't even consider
Why
it.
didn't she use it then? Oh my god.
That's crazy.
And let me just say this onto the whole level of Michaela and Fish. I can't explain their games at all. Michaela never told Fish about anything she had. She never used any of it. Fish didn't. It was crazy, and I had to edit it out.
So lucky Jack Connors went to bed.
Hey, and so real. Sorry, Michaela really flubbed that. JS, what's something that for you? What's something that you grew or sorry, if you could go back in time, what's something you would change about maybe how you acted or how you presented yourself, or really insight on it?
I mean, we've covered this. Like my behavior, especially towards Eric, was not wonderful. I definitely regretted a lot of that. I regretted it like as soon as like. I mean, at Final Tribal Council, I was saying I regretted it. I regretted it then. I regretted it later. I regretted it 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Definitely regret it today. Definitely regret it watching it back. Would you still have done the faith, like, this is why you're getting your torch snuffed? Like, would you still have done all that? Is it just at the point of
let me get mad at Eric, you would have changed, or would it have been?
Yeah, like I really don't regret being a character. I don't regret antics. I don't regret burning jury votes, because I do think burning jury votes helped me get to final 6, and I even think it even helped Katie feel like she didn't need to win because she had options, and that, you know, I'm not that big of a threat. I can get off this pole. Like, I think all those things factored in. Game related things that I do regret. I regret not hinting to Tony, and like, I didn't know this, right? I regret not hinting to Tony that I was gonna flip when I flipped, because I had in my plans to work with him after the flip. I regret not outright telling Sam ahead of time at the flip. But all these, it's hard to have regrets, because if I changed anything, like, who knows if I still would have won, right? Like,
if you tell Sam, she's about to mastermind your exit. She goes,
no, but like,
she was
really
gotta
hurt.
take him out.
I did not expect Sam to be hurt at all by it, but she was. And Tony, like, he was super butthurt even though he knew about it. But maybe if I had just hinted it at him, he would have felt like, oh wait, I have another option. And Tony, like, to this day, I met with him like a month ago. He really regrets not like actually working with me. But like, he regrets that because, you know, of the outcome. So, you know, take it as you will.
You know, it's hard to control the sway of someone who's very volatile. So, at this point, you know, we've been talking for nearly 2 hours. Are there any other moments that you guys want to talk about? Anything else you want to bring up? Anything that was really funny or eye rolling or cringy or whatever from the season, from your yeah, Erin. Erin, actually, let me ask you. Obviously, you've played some College Survivor, and you've had your own experiences in the realm of like dealing with difficult personalities or having a less than stellar end to it. For you, if you could go back in time and reflect on all that you've done, all that you've changed, how would you go about it? Is there anything that, from Winner Take All, that you feel like you would want to bring into who you were or how you want to approach a game?
Oh, interesting. I don't know necessarily that there's anything I would take into it. I think when Jack was talking about kind of like viewing the game from her perspective and like bringing her own personality into it and things like that, like that's how I view the game. Like personally, and that's what I've been saying this whole time, obviously, is like I'm not here for a character. Like that's not what I think College Survivor should be about. We're not, like, sure, it's filmed, whatever. This is not high stakes reality TV. This is not going to be viewed by millions of people. This is, at the end of the day, a college club. Like, yes, it's gonna be like put on YouTube and filmed as a show, but like you're here for the club aspect. You're here to like get a little competition out and make friends at the same time. So I think I wish I would have thought about that a little more, but I think that in my experiences, that is really what I tried to do, of like just bringing myself into it and make friends. And maybe I didn't always pick the right people. But at the end of the day, like right now, my closest friends came from Survivor Michigan. Like they came from my club. So I got what I wanted to out of it at the end of the day. And would a win have been nice? Absolutely. Do I wish I would have been able to stay on a pole a little longer? Absolutely. but like I'm happy at the end of the day. Like what's that going to get me? $50? That's like 3 drinks at Starbucks. Like, you know, we're not $100.
And derision from people online that you didn't deserve it. Katie, here's a good question. Do you regret any of the vile things you said or did to Meisner? That angel?
I actually did not even know I said all those things until you played it back. There's been a lot of shocking moments for me, hence the explosive energy. I don't know. I guess, yeah, I was a little cruel towards him, but I mean, it was all like jokes. I feel like I was just like fighting back like I did kind of in Guts and Glory. I think it was just kind of like my way of projecting, like, don't underestimate me, or like don't try to walk all over me. And honestly, I feel like it projects like part of like just how I've been growing up, you know, like I think being like an Asian woman, people tend to think like I'm like quiet, submissive. And I think having a lot of friends that look like me too, it was really frustrating to have like, I feel like, yeah, like in middle school, I remember like big groups of girls would like gang up on us and like just make comments and like taunt us for being Asian and like not speaking up. And so I feel like after that, I just went the other way. Like I guess I went a little rogue, and now like if anyone tries to say anything to me, I'll just like pop off on them. And that's what came out with Meisner. But nah, Meisner and I are like cool. We went skiing actually like right before COVID in a group, like a cabin trip. He's still like nutty. He's like swallowing like raw eggs, like whole, like he just cracked it, just eating it, and just like wearing like pink overalls. Like I don't know, like when he's skiing, like he's just like so funny and like really nutty. Yeah, he's an interesting character. But yeah, we're like friendly.
What a
He's
great
like-
answer to a joke question.
That is crazy, but somehow
True.
none of it is surprising.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a good question. What's your fave and least favorite challenge and why? Yeah, JS, what's your fave and least fave challenge?
Least favorite was the trivia challenge because as a newbie, I had actually no idea that these types of challenges would be in the game. My favorite challenges were the ones I won, I would have to say. Poll challenge was really fun. Not after the poll challenge, but the poll challenge was fun.
Eric, what's your favorite and least favorite challenge you have ever participated in? And why is it food chain is your favorite?
Well, least favorite. Let's start with that. I think it's a touchy subject, the one where people can just gang up on you for.
Oh my god, you hated that one, yes.
Oh
that
yeah,
one
you went out
seemed
like very early.
maybe had like a little bit of unfairness to it, perhaps. It did seem like you could be helpless even if you got every question right. So maybe there could be some like adjustments, so it's a little bit more.
There are non-knockout versions of Touch.
Yeah. I just like the knockout versions because it's funny. Then you get moments where Katie goes, an eye for an eye, JS, and JS goes, that's 2 eyes, asshole.
Yeah.
And then Sam goes, fuck you, Katie. You don't get that with points. Anyway, what's your favorite challenge?
I think my favorite ones are like kind of the early ones that have a lot of teamwork. I think those actually are the most fun. And I remember like the first season of Survivor Maryland I watched was Guts and Glory, and like their first challenge was also like super teamwork oriented. I think those are like really fun. And when you end up playing the game too, I think those end up being like the most fun as well. So just like in terms of pure fun, I think those like relay obstacles, teamwork, hodgepodge of everything. I think those are like the most fun.
Katie, what's your favorite and least favorite?
I think probably same. My least favorites. I don't know. I also didn't like the knockouts. I've never felt like I stood a chance because it was always returners versus newbies, and we were always outnumbered. So I never really felt like I could win those.
You didn't like Balloon Stomp?
No, I hated that one.
Oh,
That
yeah.
freaking sucked. It's just like so unfair when it's not a free for all, you know?
It was.
Oh, my least favorite. Sorry, I don't really have a favorite because I sucked at all of them clearly. But my least favorite was that damn one where you had made us do like 8, 7, 6, 5, 4 with our legs.
The foot one where I made you.
Made us do it like 3 times, and I like yelled in his face because it was like so close, but we clearly won. And he made us do it again and again and again, and I was
No. Here's what happened: is the first time I let you use knees, and then the challenge was over in like 5 minutes, and I went, "Well, this was boring. We're gonna redo it." And you were mad because the returners won, and you were like, "We just got fucked over, and here you are, Anders. Like this is such bullshit. Like we won fair and square." And it's like that's so true. Anyways,
Also, I think I was already mad at you, Anders, because I felt like I would hear from people like on my tribe that like in confessionals they'd be like, you would say things like, "Oh, like so why wouldn't you vote out Katie?" Or like like you.
Oh shit!
I would ask
Like you would probe and see like, oh, like what about Katie? Like why not Katie? And I'm just like, fuck you, Anders. You're literally rigging this game for me. Like you know how hard of a battle I have right now. And like then this challenge happened, and it's like I needed to win. I can't afford to lose any more of my returning allies. So I was just so mad at you. I was like so done with you, and I was like, I can't quit. I'm just stuck in this like rigged game.
meanwhile, 0 votes against you. Katie going, you're rigging this game against me. Name one time. Eric could say that. That's so funny. Look, that challenge, I wasn't happy to redo, but in my mind, I went, I'd rather have it be better for film and more exciting. Look, you guys won. So at the end of the day, To me, it was all gravy. For you, it was a horrible.
That was horrible.
Who would have gone home? I think we discussed it back then. Who would have gone home
Eric.
between the
Yeah,
five
wait,
of
Kate,
you?
would
Probably Eric.
No, who would have gone home?
I think it would have been Eric.
Yeah,
it was
for
just
sure.
like too
No,
early.
really? Weren't you guys? Did you guys
I
already
mean-
establish AA?
Yeah, but it was still very early.
Yeah.
Like it was like early planting seeds. All we had was like the suicide bomb talk and then him dancing to Smack That at that one like Korean like talent show on stage and me giving him the Bachelor Rose or whatever.
And that
was,
wasn't enough?
no.
I didn't play the friend idol yet, and that
I wasn't willing to stick my neck out for like people if it was like multiple, like a majority was clearly not, for it, It wasn't worth it that early in the game, unfortunately.
Jack, do you have a favorite and least favorite challenge?
Superlatives for both, probably. I also love the relay.
Why don't you like superlatives, Jack? You win all of them.
Love a good relay, love good teamwork. Sad that Sherry felt like she couldn't participate. Would have loved to do the blindfolded challenge with her, just talking in Chinese. I feel like that would have been fun.
Oh
we can
my
talk about that
god!
Yeah, I think also love a good puzzle. So, spoiler alert for season 13 and 14, expect to see puzzles, relays, and maybe some more superlatives.
And I'm sure they'll love it as much as Eric does. Are there any other moments that we want to talk about from this season, from this episode, that we feel we need to cover? Any other things that haven't been brought up?
Can I please just rant about Tony's final tribal speech?
Sure, please go
Really
ahead.
quickly? It just really upset me, obviously, for a lot of obvious reasons, just because he's Tony. Like, somehow I came out of this episode hating him even more. I don't know how that happened. But, like, it was just saying Katie doesn't deserve to be there because she didn't win the challenge was so insane to me. Like, just completely disregarding, like, the power of her, like, first of all, I understand, like, I guess knowing that Morgan kind of quit makes that make a little bit more sense. But even so, Katie was
I
not
think that's what he
going
meant.
there. Katie was not going there anyway, though, is the thing, even without that. Like, that doesn't matter. So it was just giving very, like, in the new era, like, being mad at somebody who doesn't give up immunity to make fire. Like, that's what that was giving to me. Like, that was exactly that comparison. And it was just, like, it was just so frustrating. And, like I'm sorry, JS, but like him trying to make you out to be the victim of like after like you spew all of this shit, and he's like, but they were ganging up on him, and I'm like, yeah, for valid reasons. Like they're just calling him out for things like he has done. That is not bullying. That's called accountability. And
Sure.
even at the end of his speech, like after trying to say like, oh, like JS is blah blah blah, like he's not doing all of this. He's like, he still admits like. He's a bully, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't win. And I was like, it was just the most insane speech he possibly could have given. And it was just like, it was so frustrating. I rolled my eyes a lot during this episode, but nothing harder than that. Like, it was just so deeply frustrating to me. Yeah, that's all. I just had to get that out.
On the Tony note, one final question that came up multiple times in this chat that I don't think ever got answered. Katie, have you talked to Tony since the end of this?
Wow, Jack.
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, I think after Final Tribal, I handed him the cupcakes. I said happy birthday and I apologized. And we did make amends then. Like we had a after party, like hugged it out. He was still kind of like, bitch, like you suck. But we were friends. I'm pretty sure like that following summer, like there was a group chat with JS, me, Tony, and maybe Doug when he was playing Sequester. And like, he was like asking us for advice and I was trying to chime in. I was like in Thailand teaching English in a rural area. So like I couldn't really like help being in the times difference, but things got a little like downhill after like he basically like went out at like farther down the line and I was like, I'm so sorry that like it didn't work out, but you played a great game. And then he like snapped at me and he said something like, oh, shut up. Like you didn't even help me anyway. Like if I followed like your advice from the get-go, like I would have got voted out first. And then I think that spurred like my ego and I was like, what are you talking about? And like, I started like taking credit for things that we definitely did together. But I said some things about like season 8 and how like I felt about like my game and versus his. And I think that definitely like hurt him because he felt like I was taking credit And then after that, I haven't really talked to him much. Like I saw him once at a friend's like graduation or farewell party, moving away, and he was like visibly very uncomfortable. So I stayed away. And I just haven't chatted with him. It's like super unfortunate because I mean I've known him since 3rd grade, and I don't think this edit shows like how deep of a friendship that was. Like Anders cut it because it was annoying probably to watch. We literally like texted like 24/7 and shared a lot of information. We had like code names for every single person.
The fucking code names.
Peanut.
Like it was crazy. Like
Peanut was JS, Chippendale was Miranda and Jack.
Yeah, like we literally had like nicknames for like every single person, and it was just so like I think it was just so deep, and because like we had to be under wraps, I would like sit on the floor while he was like sitting at like a desk while he was working and film really odd angles, and I feel like it was just such a deep friendship. And I don't remember, Andrew. I'll have to dig it back up. I probably like wrote it somewhere in many of my monologues. But that was just really sad. Unfortunately, we're not friends anymore. I mean, I'd be open to like reconnect, but it's now been 7 years, and according to JS, I think Tony is still upset about how things shook out.
Wait, also, I'm sorry. Did you go to the after party directly after Final Tribal,
No,
like
no.
at 4 a.m.? Okay,
No.
good.
No.
No, it was like
Okay.
2 or 3 days later. No,
Yeah,
it was the
yeah.
following weekend because
I don't
Final
know.
Tribal
It was
was
definitely
Sunday.
like a couple days later though, and we have a photo together, like hugging and stuff. Like it was fine then.
At Jess's house.
Yeah.
Jess famously had a party also after she was voted out. What a
I don't
queen.
know. It's like hard because I would like to think if I was in his shoes or Andrew's shoes, Doug's, that I would over time get over it, because like it is a game, no matter how much like I love it and was passionate. But I cannot speak for him because like I have never been on that side of like being backstabbed like that hard too. So I can understand. Like I just have to respect how he feels about it in the end, although it does suck.
For sure. And I think it's there they all are.
Wow, love the buff, Andrew. Very cute.
Yeah, I mean, I think that games like these, it's very hard when you do have the friendships, and then it's like you do both have egos about it, but it doesn't make it wrong to have strong feelings about it. And I think, not all friendships can be forever, and it obviously does take. Well, I also mean that in a way of like it takes a lot for you to look past some things from both ends, and like no one is wrong for making a decision like that, even if it's not favorable. But yeah, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I think that is a good thing to bring up. I mean, like, Final Tribal is hard. I think playing Survivor together is hard. My favorite question from this was Fish asking Eric, what's more impressive? Katie making it to Final Tribal again, or JS doing it on his first time? It's like, well, what's more impressive? 100% of getting to Final Tribal with 2 times, or doing it once?
I know.
And then he was
mad
Yeah, but
at
I'm
the
not get to
answer.
Final Tribal Council a lot of times.
And then
He rolled
JS
his eyes at the answer.
JS literally went, "Oh God!" Like, what is the question? Of course, the answer Eric would give is going to be Katie. And also, I do love Tony's question to Eric, which was really just, Eric, I know that you did all this, but JS did it better. Like, you were only targeted because you were on the bottom all the time, and you had to fight from that. But JS, he was on the bottom for half the game, and he won immunity, and you didn't when you were on the bottom. It's like, this is a bad argument.
It's not a real question. He just
It's
was
not-
like, you got dragged to the end. So tell everyone here, how
Yeah.
did you play a better game than JS?
I don't get that. And
I-
he knows that's not true. He knows
Well,
that you weren't
also-
dragged.
The claim of Eric and Katie were dragged at the end begs the question: by who? By who?
It wasn't me. I don't
It
want them there.
wasn't JS.
Yeah.
He vocally didn't want either of them. So who dragged them to the end? Morgan?
Morgan.
Sam?
She did bring us.
No,
to the
no.
end.
Also,
Yeah.
Sam's love for Katie, unexplainable. Literally
It is.
made a final 2 with Katie, wanted to keep Katie around, wanted Katie to win, didn't vote for her to win.
Also, Sam returnee season when? Because in her parting speech, she was like,
No.
I love Survivor Maryland. Like, I would love to play again. I was like, yes, Sam, come back. Queen.
I put together this like collage for Anders as like I think it was like a graduation / he did all this hosting amazingness. And Sam's note to Anders was, I may be
Oh my
black, but this game has been one of the best things that ever happened to me. I'm honored to have been a player.
I also had it.
I don't know what that means.
I know, what does I may be black have anything to do with it?
It's a very insane start to the sentence because it's like, so what part of that because you're black can't be true?
Yeah. Also, like she had such an incredible like exit confessional. Like I was like, where was this passion throughout the game? Like she was like, this is the best thing ever. I really wish I could have won, but someone like yada yada yada. I was like, girl, you've been MIA. We've been fighting for 10 minutes with you at lunch when you're eating with your friends to strategize with you.
No, be honest. Sam votes you guys out at 5 or 4. All 3 of you. Do you vote for Sam at the end?
Who's left though? Sam or who?
Doesn't
If it's
matter.
Sam and Morgan,
Doesn't
if it's
matter.
Sam and Morgan at the end, who wins?
Morgan.
Probably Morgan, yeah.
I would have probably voted for Sam. I just didn't see Morgan as a strong player.
My
But
other
Sam
favorite.
was?
Either. I would have voted whoever the third person was. Sam Morgan, I would have voted whoever the third person was. Like,
My
literally
favorite
anyone.
fun fact about Sam's game is if you removed her entirely from every single vote, there would not be a single change in how the votes fell. She never was the controlling vote in anything. It was either she was in the minority or it was such an overwhelming majority it didn't matter.
I would have voted for the stairwell.
Real. Game changer.
And her Sam was, I think, upon reflection of the edit, Sam's game is more clear to me. It's not a compelling game in any regard. It's no Katie, Eric, or JS or Jack. It's no faux winner edit. It's just like Sam was upfront about what she wanted to do, and it was whatever she felt like she was doing. She was good in that majority, and if it wasn't going to work out, she was fine getting rid of JS. She was going to be her, and if people wanted to work with her, just tell her what to do, and she'll do it. She's not going to waste time talking. And she was also a really good liar. I think because she was so spectacularly bad at socializing, when she talked to you, you'd be like, I don't really believe it, but it's also like, what else is she doing? She famously told Doug that she did vote out Andrew, which didn't make any sense because what do you mean?
Funny.
We read all the votes. No, she's great, and I'm glad she didn't make it to the end. I'm so glad she. When you're a host, your biggest fear is that the final tribal is a wash, or that you have someone there that's just dead air. And so when the final 5 is Morgan, Sam, and you 3, my hope was like, please, dear God, make it so at least one of them goes home.
And I wanted that so bad at Final 6. I was like, I really cared about the outcome of the season, and like I really wanted me, Katie, or Doug to win. Like that was really, really important to me. And that was like part of my like continued gameplay. Like I even wanted Katie to go to 4 because like I just wanted someone great to win.
And you wanted someone there to go instead of you.
Of course. But like the worst scenario would be someone to win that I didn't respect.
Yeah. I mean, I do love Katie's confessional where she goes, yeah, I had to vote out Doug. I'm not letting this newbie or this new returner from season 7 get the win over me. Are you fucking joking? It's such a good confessional of just like, yeah, no, I mean, like, I didn't have to do it, but this fucker was coming for my crown, so you gotta go, Doug.
Pride gets me every time, honestly. I think Guts and Glory, I got lucky on that final 4. But if it wasn't for the pride, I would have voted JS out at 7 instead of Tony. If it wasn't for the pride and Generations at Core, I would have brought Chris Thomas with me to the end instead of voting him out and then having to win Final 4, which was a terrible strategy.
Katie, I saw this question in the chat a bit ago. How would you rank? I mean, you can include Generations at Core if you'd like, but like, how would you rank your games based on what you're most proud of? And you can include Core because 3 is more fun. How would you rank the games that you're most proud of?
I mean, I feel like Core's like doesn't even count. I mean, compared to it being like 1
Yeah.
day, so probably like
85 days can't fit into 1 day.
Probably like winner take all, and then Guts and Glory, and then Generations.
I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, I love Generations at Core, JS. You did a great job organizing that. I was so impressed.
I want to do it again. It was so fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And Jack, you put in so much work in that too. Anders, all of you all.
Yes.
I have to say the amount we were able to raise was fucking
Oh
incredible.
my God.
We ended up
24,000?
after the so we did our social media graphics. I think the total amount was like $18,000. We were able to get a lot of it matched. It ended up being a clean even $25,000 raised for.
That's right. Wow.
That's fucking insane.
That was crazy.
I still remember
Oh my God.
Felipe showing up for, I think it was the lip sync challenge.
The drag show thing.
The drag show. It's so funny. What a funny
And
moment.
Daniela's performance. Oh my God.
No, Generations of Core was great. A fucking long day though. Yeah, great job at hosting that. There was also a one day
At Core in bite-sized chunks. Shout out to Andrew Chalfant from season 14, who is in the process of editing it into nice, neat episodes for you all. So hopefully we'll have more Survivor content, Maryland content for you within the next year.
Don't make promises. Don't make promises.
Promises though.
I also, there was a one day game that JS hosted just for my generation where
Yes.
Eric, you played it, I played it, I didn't do great in it. I just hadn't done enough orgs to get good at it. But I think the final two was Alex from season 6 and Andrew from this season. And Alex won. Sorry, Andrew.
Sorry, Erin.
Unacceptable. Wouldn't have happened if I was there.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
I have a few things. One,
Sure.
I posted it in one of the other, a comment on the video. But I think before this ends, I just want everyone to like really praise Anders for editing this season, because like he has like big boy jobs and plans like right now, and like he spends thousands and thousands and thousands of hours editing this, and we filmed so much this season, and he had to listen to my confessionals. Like he poured his heart into this and like so much time, and like listen, this isn't like watched by millions of people, but like it's for this small and very special community. And so I personally want to thank you for this, because like it was so much fun and hard to watch this back. And so just everyone that watches should give you huge amounts of praise, and I do, and I know everyone else here does. So thank you so much for doing that.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, this season was so special to me. I felt after this final tribal, I'll be honest, I wanted Katie to win. I was the biggest fan of Katie, and her coming back was like such a special moment, and her getting to the end was fucking insane. So I went, of course she's going to win. But upon doing all of this, it's like I have immense respect for all three of you finalists. I have respect for anyone who's done College Survivor. I've never played it, and thank God I didn't. I do not need this. I do not need that in my life of being judged online for those things. But also, it's an impossibly hard thing to go through of being a college student, and on top of that, playing a game of deception and social manipulation. You are making friends, but also having to betray them and lie to them and all of that. It's a hard thing to go through, and it's hard to see it edited. I think it's hard to see a version of yourself, a version of events be portrayed to an audience and have them have an opinion on it. Like, what we experience is so core to us, to our understanding of the world and how we view each other and ourselves. And I want to say, like, from the bottom of my heart, I love all of you guys, and I think the way that you all played was incredible and special, and like it's a moment I will never forget. And regardless of how you feel that you've been portrayed or how people feel about you, that isn't reality. This isn't who you are, who you were, or who you will be. Like, that is just a moment in time reflected in a very specific way, because I want to tell a story. What is the story of the season, I think, is up for interpretation. My story here was to show the winning games of all three of you, and the result is the result. It's not me saying anyone's wrong or that anyone's a horrible person or that anyone is wrong or right for doing what they did. I think that's up to the people involved to have a feeling on, and viewers can do whatever they want. But, you know, I don't think you should all, I think, Katie, a big part of, for you, like, was how people reflected on your own win. And a big goal of mine is that this isn't about how people feel about how you won or how you played or what you did. It's about how you feel about it, because a lot of these seasons won't get edited. A lot of these seasons won't get produced. And that's a constraint of time. This has taken me so fucking long, and I spent so much time over this past week just making sure this finale could come out. And I'm more than happy to do it because I love doing this. I love the people in this. I love bringing it about, having people reflect on it, and I love, more specifically than anyone in this world, the people who were participating, watch it, and on some level enjoy it. So for me, I don't want anyone to watch this season and take away a negative feeling about it, that they were bad or should be feeling bad about their actions. Even people that universally might be criticized, like Tony or Fish or Winnick or whatever, like, I don't think that it should be about criticizing these people for their decisions, because that's fucked up. People are allowed to make their own decisions, and how that like Katie can feel a certain way about Tony because guess what? She and him have interacted. They have in history and reasons to feel that way. It's not up for an audience to tell someone how to feel or what they should do. But yeah, I wanted to put on these hours and these years and this effort into doing this because I love you guys. I love this season especially, and I'm more than happy to do it. Will there be a future of Survivor Maryland editing? Not my job. All right, seasons beyond season 10 is not my fucking job, and someone else can deal with that. Will there be seasons 9 and 10? Maybe. But I'm more than happy to have done this. And the book that Katie gave me, which has pictures and notes from every player of the season, is one of my dearest possessions. Because when I started doing Survivor Maryland, I was a sophomore with nothing better to do. And I said, this seems like a fun thing to do that even if I can't participate, I'd like to at least run. And what it has become and what it means to so many people is worthwhile, and it's worth, the world over. I may be a little bit old to be doing college things, but what it has meant to me is insurmountable and it's undescribable. And where I am today is because of it. I would not be what I am today or where I am today if it was not for Survivor Maryland. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, like Jay, S, Eric, Katie, Jack, all the players of Survivor Maryland, season 6 through 10 and beyond and before, thank you so much for everything that you've done and given me. And I'm so happy to have done this labor of love. And it was a labor, but it also has a lot of love in it. And yeah, thank you, Erin, for joining me this entire season to talk about and, more importantly, hate the fact that you had to watch a JS success story, but also a success story of Katie and Eric, who, by all accounts, deserved that win just as much. And whether or not they won to me and to the narrative. But any other final thoughts? Anything else that we want to share or talk about or bring up? No Michaela love. Interesting. Kind of fucked up.
I'll just say thank you for letting me be a part of this, letting me infiltrate your little college for a little bit, insert myself into here. I've had a blast talking about it. Obviously, I have not loved every single minute of it, but I have loved talking about it. And like Andrew said, to the audience, to anybody, like, my opinions are my opinions. I'm asked to come on here and talk about my opinions every single week. That's not me telling people how to feel. That's not me saying whatever. And it is never okay to directly send any hate or any vitriol towards anybody who puts themselves out there for something like this. So we're not doing that. We're not directing things
unless you're a mother of 3, then you deserve the hate you get.
But Tony's Instagram is at.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a joy to be a part of, and I appreciate it every single time. And Anders, you are amazing for doing this, and you are incredible. Like, the editors of these, like Anders said, they're doing it as a labor of love. The people who make this community go round are the Anders Norbergs, the Ian Harrises, the Shane Killens of the world. And these people are incredible, and they put in so much time and effort for little reward. Like, their reward is just they love these people, and these people get to love them back. So yeah, all of the props in the world to Anders. You are amazing. I'm incredibly proud of you, and you put out an incredible product for so many people to enjoy.
If you want to help create more seasons of Survivor Maryland and you want to participate in we're always recruiting people to edit footage.
Yeah, if you guys want to go through this labor of love, heavy on the labor, Jack's more than happy to connect you.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo everyone's thoughts. Thanks so much, Anders. Seriously, I know
I put some pressure on you last week because Eric booked his flight like last week to come to New York to watch with us. We're like, we need to see some version of a finale, or else you just came for like less than 48 hours. But you made it happen. Thank you so much. This was amazing. And yeah, I think it's been really interesting to see how like controversial our cast has been. But I feel like, you know, even though I didn't win, like I'm really happy with the season overall. I think it was incredible like finish, but also like, I don't know, beginning to end, I thought it was awesome. So I hope you all are just as happy about it as we are. And yeah, I'm excited for the future of Survivor Maryland. I feel like it's going strong. They're doing casting, I think, for like season 23.
23.
Yeah, and also I saw in the finale earlier that at some point there were like 180 some people watching now, which I was like, I've only seen about like 40 or 50 at any episode. So it's like there's a lot of lurkers here, and I hope, Anders, you can see that. So many people appreciate all your hard work. And
Good to put in a little dig first. Yeah, normally I only see 40 or 50. But 180. Hooray, awesome.
No, I'm
yeah.
just like, where did y'all come from? Like everyone is like buzzing up in the chat, and I'm just like, I've never seen you here before, which makes me think there's a lot of people who like are watching and just not saying anything at all. There's like hundreds out there. So
Look, I'll say this. Sometimes it's best to be silent because the people who are too loud are so wrong.
that is
So
true. Well, they're just like, mean. I'm like, just be like, why are you being so mean? Like these are real people. Like, please give everyone some slack. Like this was 7 years ago also.
And look, I get it. If you want to be mad about Tony's insane speech, I get it. Bitch, I was editing and going, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's like, girl, these people, the point is people are wrong and like annoying and loud and whatever at all points in time. Like no one is perfect. But to react so heavily to whatever, people are going to be people. I don't think they care. Were you going to say something, Eric?
Oh yeah, no.
Sorry, I thought you were gearing up to say something and then I interrupted.
No, +1. No, I'm just kidding. No, like genuinely, like I didn't like even after playing once, I was like, and even after playing twice, I didn't really realize like how much work you put into it. And I think that's definitely after watching, especially like. Okay, I watched less of last season and more of this season for obvious reasons.
And to be fair, I think a lot of people agree with you.
Yeah, but definitely like after watching, I just realized how much time you've been putting into this, and I think that's something that's like really like I can't be any more grateful for. Like I don't. It's a hard job, and during the season recording, we give you like a lot of slack, like we give you a lot of shit, but I think overall like. We couldn't really ask for like someone who's like more dedicated towards the cause.
If I could go back and change how I hosted, I 1000% would. There's so many changes I'd make, but I can't, and it's what I did. But I am immensely grateful that I did it and got to meet so many incredible people and got to do all of this. It's a highlight, and I'm glad I'm not in college, and I'm glad I don't need to be doing this with all hours of my day. And yet somehow I managed to fill all my time with, let me look at this confessional and find a moment where Eric talks about why he wants to get rid of Katie. Because I've got to put it in this episode. But here's a great question. What would I have done differently? If I could redo things, first of all, not cast JS. I'm kidding. For season 8, there's not a lot I would change, maybe besides making some challenges more exciting to watch. And have better
lighting at
angles.
tribals.
And Jesus Christ, if I could change the lighting at tribals, I would. The note I've gotten from Austin every time is, can you make it look better? Fucking no, I can't. I can't make it look better. Maybe I should do it inside like Michigan did it, but I didn't. But if I could go back, I'd change season 9. No, I'm kidding. No. I'm so glad that I got to do this. I'm so glad that I got to do season 8. It was, thank God for the pandemic making season 7 easier to do, and thank God for season 8 being worth doing. And if I never do another one again, it'll be too soon. Just kidding. We'll see if I ever do it again. But once again, I just want to say before we close out, thank you everyone on this panel for joining me to talk about this. There may be another panel I have with Austin just to finally have a talk about it, but we'll see. TBD on that. yeah, thank you viewers for watching and sticking with this with the Generation 2 bullshit. This season again has been such an honor to do. It's been so much fun. It's really made this year really fun. It's really made it wonderful to reconnect with people that I haven't talked to in a while. And I love Survivor Maryland. I love College Survivor. I think that it's a beautiful community that has blossomed and brings together people, and just every day makes college a more fun place, makes people happier and feel more connected in ways that they wouldn't otherwise. And I think, echoing Jack's words from this episode, Survivor is about community, it's about growth, and this is a way to get it for people who are just learning who they are. So we've been going for 2.5 hours. I'm assuming no one has any final thoughts, so I just want to say thank you so much, and good night. And rewatch this season. Maybe you'll enjoy it more knowing the ending.
Tell your